Hello, everyone. Happy Wednesday. Well, guys, we are in for another episode of Nitwits today. And listen, I just want to make a general statement about this. I think we're going to be doing quite a few Nitwits between now and the end of the year. Don't get me wrong. I got some other stuff too. I've got an interview coming up next week on the channel. I'll tell you more about that. There might be some other stuff going on, but the thing of it is it's the holidays. People are getting busy. We don't always have to do serious content. It can be a good time to catch up on some other things and just relax and kick back and have some fun with it. So Nitwits is a show where I watch other people's content that I either am interested in, or I want to analyze the psychology of it, or I want to be aware of it, and I knit while we watch the content. And I will show you what I'm knitting in a second, but I'm actually really excited about what we're going to watch today, because today we are going to watch Alex Jones and Nick Fuentes debate Hitler. What could possibly go wrong? This is the shit show that does not end. This is the train wreck that we're all driving by that we just can't turn away from. This happened yesterday. I didn't get a chance to watch it yesterday. So I thought that we would do it all together. I mean, listen, man, compared to the nightmare acid trip that we all suffered through yesterday, and again, I really do have to apologize for anyone that was here for yesterday's stream. I feel like I failed you in some respects. This is going to be like a walk in the park compared to yesterday's acid trip of a stream. Let's just acknowledge that. So, but these are two of the most controversial figures on the internet, and of course, Nick Fuentes doesn't seem to have any sort of filter or sense of right or wrong. And so we're going to watch this. We're going to see what they have to say, and I'm going to knit, and we're going to talk about it, and we're going to make fun of it, and that's what we're going to do today. But before I get into that, of course, we have a couple orders of business, and the first order of business that I want to talk about is, one of the reasons I'm taking it a little bit easy for the rest of the year is that I am actually really hard at work behind the scenes. I'm working on building out the Schools Exposed program that I did the crowdfunding campaign for a couple months back. It is still scheduled to launch in January. I feel completely comfortable I'm going to be able to meet that schedule. But the thing of it is I haven't been talking about it a lot because I have an unruly cancel horde on Twitter that tries to deplatform me from everything I talk about. Okay. So what I've been doing behind the scenes in terms of building out Schools Exposed is I've been making sure I have multiple backups built out so that if they happen to deplatform me off of one of them, I will still have backups and things like that. And of course, I'm also trying to make the program great for launch. The program is going to be like it's going to be a living, breathing program. There's going to be things continuously added to the program as updates and it happen and things change in the world, stuff like that. But you can also still support this program and get access to it in one of the very first groups that's going to have access to it. If you want to head over to the Indiegogo, that's unwokearmy.com/parents. It'll redirect you right there. The link is in the description below. You can get some great perks, some great discounts, and all that stuff. So that is what I'm primarily working on. And to be quite frank, it's taking a lot of my brain power to do this. And so I just need to relax sometimes too. And so that's another reason we're going to be doing Nitwit streams, mostly probably for the rest of the year, because I need some downtime as well. Okay, this is like a time to unwind with friends. So that's one of the things I've been working on. I also want to let you guys know about my Actively Unwoke Substack, which is carlyn.substack.com, KARLYN.substack.com. There you go. Actually, that wasn't what I wanted to do. I wanted to make that a ticker banner. Oh no, why didn't I make that a ticker banner? Hang on, that's quick to fix. There we go. That's better. And this is my Actively Unwoke Substack. So it's where I'm posting a lot of articles, breaking down the woke ideology stuff I may not necessarily make videos of. I may make videos of them at one time or like after I write the article. But usually what happens with my actively unwoke content is I write the article and then I make a podcast or a video or something like that. This is also a great place to get updates on different unwoke events, different activities. I'm going to be doing a complete, I don't want to call it relaunch of Actively Unwoke because it's not a relaunch, but I'm doing a big update to the website in conjunction with the Schools Exposed program. So there's going to be a lot of new stuff coming in the new year. And if you want to get updates, you can sign up for free at carlin.substack.com. All of the articles are free. I don't charge for anything. You, of course, can sign up for a paid subscription if you want to support the work I'm doing, and I appreciate it. But you don't have to if you don't want to or can't afford to. I understand that. And I just want to draw your attention to a couple articles I posted this week. One is called The 4 Primary Goals of the Woke Left. Please, 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 please read this article. This is probably the most important thing that exists on Actively Unwoke. I break down their 4 primary goals, which are gain as much power as possible, destabilize the system, attack capitalism, usher in their Marxist utopia. I add more information and examples, but you have to understand this about the woke left. You have to understand it. Okay? And so that article is going to break that down for you. And then I just posted this one yesterday. They don't want to eliminate women. They want to eliminate gender. This is based off of the work that we've been doing with Socialism Saturdays. Socialism Saturdays are on my channel every Saturday at 6 p.m. Well, mostly every Saturday. And it's where we watch real socialism and we listen to their ideas in their full form so we can really suss out exactly what they're trying to do. And one of the things they're trying to do is eliminate gender entirely. You're welcome. But you can read those articles at carlin.substack.com and look at all my other content as well, including things like why are they trying to make life easier for pedophiles? Or you always remember your first time fighting back against the woke in the real world, that is. Lots of other stuff going on there that you can take advantage of if you so choose. And I wanted to direct people to that because I often get accused of not creating any content that isn't drama content. Well, yeah, I am. And that's one of the ways that you can find it. So head over there if that's the type of thing you're looking for. And of course, if you would like to support the work I'm doing, there are many ways you can do that. Number one, you can join my Patreon anywhere from $5 a month all the way up to $250 a month, depending on what types of perks you want or, how much you like me on any given day. You can also join my locals community. I really want to suggest people join my locals. It is the place where I do the most interaction. It is my private community. You can join there for $5 a month, $50 a year. You can also make a one-time gift. When you join either my locals or my Patreon, you get access to 2 private calls with me every single week. We just did one today. And those are Zoom calls. They are private. They are unrecorded. We talk about a lot of stuff. And so that's a great locals or Patreon is going to be a great option if you want that. And then, of course, you can actually become a paid supporter on my Substacks if you would like to do that. Again, not required. I post everything there for free. But if you want to support the work I'm doing and keep me in business, that's a way that you can do that. All right, guys. Are you ready to watch some Alex Jones? Now, I want to show you what I'm knitting first. I'm still working on the Mises Caucus shawl. And what happened is I had to rip out like 4 or 5 rows because I screwed up. I made a mistake. And so that I have to go back and redo it. And I'm starting to make, let's see. I'm starting to make it look more like an M. Basically is what's happening. So this is the shawl that I'm designing. There's going to be a libertarian knitters book that comes out at PorkFest this year. And I was asked to design a Mises Caucus shawl option. And so that is what I'm working on doing. This is only the second shawl that I've ever actually designed. But it's a relatively simple design. So I think it's going to be okay. It gets a little complicated sometimes because I literally have 5 balls of yarn sitting here that I have to navigate between. I am working on like 5 different strands of yarn at once at this point to basically do these like little inlays where it looks like it's all a cohesive fabric, but it sometimes takes multiple balls of yarn in order to do that. So that is actually going to be available at PorkFest in June for anyone that's coming up to New Hampshire for that. And that is what I'm going to be working on today. Who is ready to watch the debate about Hitler from Alex Jones and Nick Fuentes? Please mount that like button for me if you're ready. Let's see. And this was just yesterday. Nick joined Alex via Skype on Tuesday for an epic discussion about the notorious interview with Ye. With the information gatekeepers in power trying to eliminate free speech and censor controversial viewpoints, Jones decided to show how disagreements in America ought to be settled by debating Fuentes about Hitler, the Nazi Party, Kanye West's recent comments, and more. Now, just in case I happen to get a YouTube strike in the middle of this stream, I just want to let everyone know that I am also currently streaming on Odyssey and on Rockfin and on Rumble and on Gitter. So if for some reason, if Nick Fuentes happens to say something deeply, deeply, deeply anti-Semitic, which I think we can all guess that he might do that. You can also find this stream on Odyssey, Rockfin, Rumble, and Gitter, just in case my stream gets pulled. I really hope it doesn't get pulled, but I am streaming other places. Just want to let you know. All right, well, I guess let's get this party started and let's see what happened in this here debate.
Ye has started this conversation with the DEFCON 3 tweet about the Jews. He went on your show and he said that he loves Hitler. And what's, I think, the most remarkable about this is everybody is fixated on the remark. What did you mean by DEFCON 3? What did you mean by you love Hitler? What do you love about Hitler? What does DEFCON mean? Is that a threat? And so on. And he's done several interviews. He did an interview with Piers Morgan, with Lex Friedman, with Tim Pool, with you, with Gavin. And in all the interviews, it's so focused on the Hitler. It's focused on the Jewish.
I can see we're already,
and for a lot of people, they might say, oh, well, of course.
I can see we're already getting some Nick Fuentes fans in the chat. Now, oh, shit, I really didn't mean to do that. Sorry, people. I did not mean to fast forward an hour and a half. I just want to say for any Nick Fuentes fans who might be joining us, I have 2 rules in my chat. Number 1, don't be a dick. You will not insult me. You will not insult other people in the chat. Number 2, no whining. If I ask you to stop doing something, please stop doing it. If you do both of those, yep, okay, we're getting, okay. Hi, Ethan. Hi, Ethan. If you play nice, you can stay. If you don't play nice, I will just have my mods block you. That's just the way it goes. We actually want to watch this, guys. We actually want to listen to your boy, Nick Fuentes. So chill the fuck out and let us watch and let us make fun of him, right? Just be nice if you're going to be over here. I don't really care if you're here. I don't really care if you shit talk, but just follow the rules and everyone gets along.
With Gavin. And in all the interviews, it's so focused on the Hitler. It's focused on the Jewish. And for a lot of people, they might say, oh, well, of course, that's an outrageous thing to say. It's so provocative. And maybe that was the intention. Maybe it was about publicity. Maybe it was staged. But if you listen to what the man is saying, he has said what got us to this point. I think that it says something in itself that the conversation is about the remark rather than all the, in my opinion, far more outrageous things going on all around, which is that right now the ADL is shaking down Congress for $500 million. I don't know if people realize that. Submitted an appropriations request in response to the interview we did.
You're watching the American Journal. With
that scared the hell out of me.
The Alex Jones Show. This is The War Room with Owen Schroyer. InfoWars, the most banned network in the world.
That's actually funny.
They don't have the courage of their convictions. And it makes them a tough adversary because it's like fighting a ghost. Like, we are solid in what we believe. We believe in the family. We believe in Western culture. We believe in Jesus Christ. That's stalwart. That's set in stone. They're just moving all over the place. Whatever it takes to win. Cheating on elections, supporting Nazis, whatever works, they do it. How do you fight them?
You recognize who they are and everything they say is a lie.
Yeah. And every time they're confronted with that lie,
there is a kind of energy in there, an almost sacred energy in the swastika, that it's so hated. It's treated so negatively.
No.
It's like the center of the
there
liberal
is not a
morality.
Wait, hang on. Is that Ethan Ralph? Is that what that jackass looks like? For real? And he's making fun of my weight and my looks? Has he looked in the mirror? I truly didn't even know what this asshole looked like. Wow. Wow. Okay. I now have new perspective on who exactly Ethan Ralph is, and it's he has some self-esteem issues is what's going on. He's very angry because he has self-esteem issues. Let's just all be honest about it. Probably also stemming from the fact that he has a tiny penis and is compensating. I really had no idea what that guy looked like. Now I do. Makes total like all it's all coming together.
Hitler. So there's so much like invested in it that it weirdly becomes sacred and becomes powerful. And so when Kanye tapped into that, now what is exactly does Kanye know about Hitler? Is he an actual fascist? I don't think so. Whatever.
What?
He's tapping into some kind of dark energy that's very powerful and maybe destructive and chaotic as well, but is powerful nevertheless. And he was willing to do that in a way that ultimately Alex Jones isn't. Alex Jones belongs in the Ron Paul era, where it's like, we believe in free speech and our Constitution, and we hate the Nazis. The liberals are the real Nazis or whatever. That in some ways, even as wild as Alex Jones can be, he's ultimately still trapped in that moral cage of the liberals he despises. He agrees with them on
Yo, I'm going to tell you this. These alt-right extremist assholes are going to become more and more and more of a problem over the next 2 years. Mark my words, I am always universally right about this stuff. There's not been one prediction like this that I made that has been wrong. And this type of thing is more attractive than people understand, and it's dangerous. And they're basically riling up a lot of angry people who feel like they have nothing to lose and no one to turn to, and they're just going to say and do the most extremist shit they possibly can. Now, does the left have their own version of this? Of course they do. It's called Antifa. They've been doing this for a long time, but mark my words, people like this are going to become a problem over the next couple years in ways that people have not reckoned with yet. And Stu Peters is an anti-Semitic jackass, and he can go fuck himself. You're allowed to like him. You're allowed. You aren't breaking the chat rules or anything. I'm not going to ban you, but like, I'm just going to comment that I think Stu Peters is a jackass.
Their most fundamental issue. Kanye was like going to the dark magic. He was going there. He was tapping into that energy, a place where Alex Jones dares not tread. So I just think that in itself is really remarkable and is it's demonstrating something. It's revealing something about the world. I think it is kind of taking us to a new place in a way. And you can complain about it all. I mean, of course, the ADL complains about it, whine. But like, what can you say about it? I mean, he probably does have some serious mental struggles.
I don't know why we're watching this as an intro.
So do I. But, he's authentic. He's speaking his truth. He's being real. He's actually having the conversation that people want.
All right.
So your Alex Jones and your Marjorie Taylor Greene, they're like the other criminals in Gotham in Dark Knight. They're like the mob bosses. And they bring in Joker to kill the Batman. They bring in Ye, earns all the money and says all you care about is money. This town deserves a better class of criminal. And they're all like horrible.
Yeah, I'm going to say this. I don't mind these Joker characters. I think that's actually really interesting. I think it shakes things up. I think that this is going to get me in trouble. I think that pushing the Overton window is a good thing. I think that we need to push the bounds of free speech. I really do. I don't mind that Alex Jones gave Kanye West a platform to say deeply disturbing and anti-Semitic shit. I don't mind that at all. Because the only way you defeat bad ideas is with better ideas. I don't think that banishing these people to the bowels of Telegram is the right answer, because Telegram is what is going to make this problem worse. So I don't mind any of that. What I mind is Nick Fuentes' fans in my chat right now beginning to be little pains in the asses. So bros, like, listen, again.
And they're criminals. They kill people and they're murderers.
Ledger was amazing as the
It's the
Joker.
same thing. It's like Alex Jones and Marge.
Unbelievable.
They bring this guy in and Ye is like, oh, you people care about his money. And then it's people like me. I'm like the hungry dog. Let's see how loyal a hungry dog really is. I'm them. Try out. He breaks the pool cue and throws it on the floor. Groyper fights to the death. That's just who he is. He's an artist. He's a genius. And above all that, he's right.
So I thought I'd play a few of the clips I saw on the internet of kind of the other side. Burn it all down, bring down the system. But, Klaus Schwab says he wants an angrier world. They want to bring down the system and bring in a new system. So I've never really been accused by anybody credible of being loyal opposition or getting a call from the ADL and told what to say. And I'm sure when Nick, and others have said that, that's tongue in cheek. No, I legitimately don't
Alex
like
Jones dressed up.
I don't like Adolf Hitler. I don't like Mao Zedong. I don't like Joseph Stalin or V.I. Lenin. I don't like the ADL and their incredible authoritarianism. And I've been pushing really hard to stop.
The energy that Alex Jones is giving me already in this is he's like, and Alex Jones has said this about himself, and so I don't feel like I'm insulting him. Alex Jones is just like a big dummy. Like, he's very smart about like a very specific niche of information. There are some things that Alex Jones is incredibly smart about, but like there's also things that he's just kind of like this big kind of like a lovable dummy character that he's like, I don't like any of this bad stuff. Like, please don't pin this on me, Nick. Please don't do that. And that's kind of charming about Alex Jones, I have to say. I understand why people like Alex Jones. He's like, there's something charismatic about him. There's something charming about him. And I think Alex Jones too, like, excuse me. I think Alex Jones too, it genuinely does try to do the right thing. I think mistakes have been made. Believe me. But like I do not approve of any of Alex Jones's stuff in regards to like the Sandy Hook stuff. He should have known better. I don't like the judgment against him, but he damn well should have known better with what he said. But like I do think that he does genuinely try to do the right thing and he's been phenomenally successful at it in the face of almost insurmountable obstacles, and so you have to show some respect there.
Them destroying our First Amendment. But, you can dislike Hitler and also dislike the ADL in my worldview. And I know it's the naughty thing to come up here and say you love Hitler, but I don't agree with that. I agree with people's First Amendment. I agree they shouldn't be penalized for it. And that's why I created a platform for that. One of the biggest things probably ever, definitely the most views we've ever had for one event. I mean, Endgame got watched 100 million times, like 80-something million times on Google Video before they took it down, but that took a couple of years to do before they took it down. But this is definitely one of the biggest things we've ever done. But it just kind of, to me, was very interesting. It was thought-provoking. And, of course, we see people like Scott Adams saying, oh, I see what Ye did. He's trying to overturn the whole chessboard. So is that really what went on? So before we have a debate or an argument, I'd like to give Nick some time to give his views. We really haven't talked much other than briefly Sunday about him coming on today, about what he thinks really went on there, because some people thought I staged that and I was in on it or something. No, I didn't know what was going on. Kind of like Trump didn't know what was going on to a greater extent. I knew who I was meeting with. And then I had seen clips of Nick saying he didn't support Hitler and actually wasn't anti-Semitic. He just didn't like what some of the Jewish
Nick Fuentes is obviously anti-Semitic.
Doesn't agree with him. So I just kind of
he's obviously
really
anti-Semitic.
Is an enigma of what's really going on. So uncensored, unfiltered, Nick Fuentes joins us for the next hour and 42 minutes or so. Nick, thanks for joining us. What do you want to talk about first, or will you humor me and tell me what the hell you think happened a week and a half ago here in the studio?
Yes. Well, hello, Alex. Great to be with you. I'll humor you, and we could talk a little bit about how the show went down. For anybody that thinks it was staged, of course it wasn't. And people, they have all these ideas about where this is coming from, where Ye is coming from with these new ideas and with these kinds of things. And people have talked about mental illness, and they've said that people like me are giving him ideas or handling him. People have speculated that the walkout on Tim Pool or the show that we did with you was staged. And
it was
staged.
I've
been working with Ye for the last 3 weeks. Nothing is staged. And nobody can handle him. Nobody can influence him. He's his own man. And as far as the mental illness remarks goes, I've met manic people before. I've known bipolar people. He's not a bipolar or an unstable person.
He absolutely
In
is.
fact, he's highly energetic, vigorous.
That is total and complete bullshit. Kanye West obviously has bipolar disorder. Kanye West obviously is going through a manic episode. Kanye West is being used by people like Milo Yiannopoulos. Not anymore, because he fired Milo. He's being used by people like Nick Fuentes. He's being used by people like Ali Alexander for their own sick revenge strategy against the Republican Party, and to basically cause trouble where no trouble existed before. But like, to say that Kanye West is not bipolar because Nick Fuentes knows bipolar people, give me a break. Give me a break.
Works all day, creative. I really can't say enough positive things about him. But with regards to the appearance on your show, what I've noticed is that Ye has started this conversation with the DEFCON 3 tweet about the Jews. He went on your show.
If they do, they'll just
and
get
he said that he
blocked
loves
very
Hitler.
quickly.
And what's
So it'll be
I
a
think
waste
the most
of everyone's
remarkable
time
about this is everybody is fixated on the remark. What did you mean by DEFCON 3? What did you mean by you love Hitler? What do you love about Hitler? What does DEFCON mean? Is that a threat? And so on. And he's done several interviews. He did an interview with Piers Morgan, with Lex Friedman, with Tim Pool, with you, with Gavin. And in all the interviews, it's so focused on the Hitler. It's focused on the Jewish. And for a lot of people, they might say, oh, well, of course, that's an outrageous thing to say. It's so provocative. And maybe that was the intention. Maybe it was about publicity. Maybe it was staged. But if you listen to what the man is saying, he has said, what got us to this point? I think that it says something in itself that the conversation is about the remark rather than all the, in my opinion, far more outrageous things going on all around, which is that right now the ADL is shaking down Congress for $500 million. I don't know if people realize that. Submitted an appropriations request in response to the interview we did. Now, you've got, whether you thought it was entertaining, whether you thought it was revolutionary, you have Ye with a mask on, with a yoo-hoo and a net saying, I love Hitler, and the ADL shaking the cup with Congress. We need $500 million to fight anti-Semitism. It's outrageous. He's been banned from the bank. He's had his deals shut down by Nike and Adidas to the tune of billions of dollars over 10 years. And the list goes on and on and
stay
on.
there. I hear what you're saying, but then that's what people ask, and I don't think this is the case. That is Ye secretly like an ADL operative to get them funding. So we're going to talk about that when we come back. I guess what I want to say here is Alex Jones, and this being my broadcast, is I really didn't know that Ye was going to come here and do that. I didn't know that Nick Fuentes was going to agree with him. I understand their First Amendment. I understand when the ADL on the left says it's inherently racist and evil to be white or to be Christian, that they've crossed that Rubicon and basically become what they say Hitler was. So at that point, Ye isn't taking people's bank accounts away and spying on folks on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and wanting $500 million from Congress for this hate task force to basically silence anybody that criticizes any of the leftist operations. So I don't like any of that. I'm a big enemy of it. The ADL singles me out at their big events and wants me destroyed. My only frustration is I legitimately, Nick, have studied World War II and also had family that was in World War II, and know that a bunch of the top Nazis tried to kill Hitler, like Erwin Rommel and people, and that Stalin admired Hitler and all the rest of this. I don't like Stalin either. And so just because what was done to Germans was wrong in World War I, and there were also war crimes against Germans, in my view, let's just get the Hitler thing out of the way. Do you actually admire Adolf Hitler?
In some ways, yes.
Oh my God!
And I'm not a National Socialist, and I'm not I wouldn't identify that way because I'm a Christian. So I'm
no,
not
you're
any
not,
kind
Nick.
Of a socialist or a
you
fascist.
are not
I
a Christian.
I believe we should have a Christian government. It's a Christian country. God runs the world. We should have
I'm not a socialist or a fascist. I just believe that we should have a Christian theocratic government. Do you really think that's better, bro? Do you really think that you sound any less authoritarian to those of us who actually respect things like, you know, the First Amendment? Don't tell me you believe in the Constitution when you want to introduce a Christian theocratic government. That makes no sense at all.
Government in accordance with that. But honestly, I don't share this histrionic Jewish view that Hitler is this exceptionally boogeyman, evil figure.
Oh, hey, Thomas.
The 20th century is
Glad you
full
could join us.
of violence. The 20th century is full of authoritarian
Exactly.
ideologies
Great
run
point,
rampant,
Thomas.
and that's a product of modernism and liberalism and all kinds of trends. But this idea that my life is in any way impacted by Hitler, I have a lot more animosity for the ADL. I have a lot more animosity for the ZOA. I have a lot more animosity for the groups that have actually made my life and the life of my family materially worse, personally and across the board with the society. I'm sick of being expected by Jewish media and Holocaust museums to beat my chest like you kind of did the other week and say, "Oh, I hate Hitler. Hitler's a..." You know, it's like this weird. It's like 1984.
So if you say that Hitler is a bad person, you're capitulating to a cabal. It kind of seems like Nick Fuentes is trying to pressure people into saying things they don't want to say, so they aren't so that he doesn't accuse them of being part of some monstrous Jewish media conspiracy to smear them and defame them. That's what it sounds like to me. Nick, people are allowed to say they don't like Hitler. They're allowed to say that. People are allowed to say that Hitler was bad. People are allowed to say that that we probably shouldn't be admiring someone. I'm just saying. Oh, if Thomas accidentally got timed out, I'm sorry. Some of my mods are trigger happy today. Guys, just like be careful in the timing people out, okay? Be careful.
You know, when they put the face on the TV and everybody's got to get all wound up. He's
You're talking about 10 minutes.
Figure.
And by the way, for the mods, things like this is allowed, okay? People are allowed to say they like Nick Fuentes. People are allowed to agree with him. I'm not going to I'm not going to ban people for that. What is going to get people banned is if they insult me or other people in the chat, or if they whine and complain when I tell them to stop. But they are allowed to disagree with us as long as they express their opinion like Greg here is doing. I disagree with Greg, but Greg's allowed to express that opinion. I just want to make sure that's clear for all the mods.
You're talking about 10 minutes of hate. Well, I legitimately hate Stalin, hate Mao, hate Hitler, hate the ADL, hate Barack Obama, hate the Democratic Party. And I've always, remember me on Piers Morgan? I didn't get a call from the ADL when I was on Piers Morgan, the most popular thing he ever did, the biggest thing CNN did that year. They had the ratings. They had like 50 million viewers for that. Their average show had like 10 million back then. And I said, Hitler took the guns. Stalin took the guns. Mao took the guns. And if you try to take our guns, 1776 will commence again. I've always criticized Hitler. I've made documentaries about the Bush family helping fund Hitler and the British royalty. So where we have a sticking point is that Alex got the call as you sent out on social media. And I'm just curious, do you think I actually got a call to come out and criticize Hitler? You think that's a new thing for me?
No, I know that you're very vocally anti-Hitler over the years. I know that you're more of a libertarian, and so you have this view of history which lumps in together Mao, Stalin, Hitler as authoritarians versus freedom fighters, capitalists, you know, George Washington, Thomas Jefferson. So I'm familiar with your show and all of that. And honestly, it was a little bit glib. You called me baby Hitler. I said, you got a call. You know, quite honestly, it's banter, but it is well known that you don't really talk about this issue. You're more talking about New World Order, Bill Gates, and these sort of obscure conspiracy theories like Bilderberg. My show's a lot more focused on, you know, what you might call the Jewish question, which is what are we to do about this Jewish elite these Jewish gangsters that run our Christian country. These people
And I
that don't
think
worship.
In other words, Nick Fuentes' show is far more anti-Semitic than InfoWars, which I think we can all agree with, considering we've watched 2 recent episodes of his show.
And I think that's a debate that should be had, because
Alex Jones is
there's
still
no
the
doubt
voice
that
of reason. It's
leftism
true.
and the whole globalist power grab has wrapped itself in Judaism as its defense. And I would call the FTX folks and the federal regulators who all involved in this basically are Jewish,
Yep.
who are out there
Nick
doing
Fuentes
that,
is a
are
Nazi.
criminals who happen to be Jewish who are hiding behind Judaism. But I don't then blame the average Jew for that. So I think that's the difference. Kind of like when Ye and you were on with Gavin McInnes, and he's like, well, blacks commit as proportionate more crime than the other group, but you don't just blame the average black person. Do you just not trust a Jew when they come in the room? And Ye goes, yeah, I don't, to me, that's what I'm saying is I do believe in Martin Luther King, that we judge individuals by who they are and what they do, not by what color they are or where they're from. But go ahead.
Yeah, I agree with that in principle, but we also have to understand that it's not that these people happen to be Jewish. I think that's the big source of the disagreement. Is these are what we're told in the last few weeks. When Ye makes these remarks about the Jewish media or Jewish Hollywood or so on, as well, these are individuals. These are people that we've got to name them individually, and these are people that happen to be bad, or rather they are bad and happen to be Jewish. But I think there's something about their Jewishness that makes it this way. And I think
that's anti-Semitic as shit. I'm sorry, guys. Listen, like, one of the reasons I left the left is because they became all about collectivism. They started viewing everyone based on their identity, and they started stereotyping everyone based on their identity. And if you didn't agree with the stereotypes, then you were ostracized and canceled and all of this bullshit. Nick Fuentes is a collectivist. I believe in individualism and meritocracy. Nick Fuentes does not believe in individualism and meritocracy. He is a collectivist, because if you're making the argument that we need to view all Jews based on their Jewishness, that is a collectivist view of the world. It is not an individualist view of the world. You cannot have meritocracy in a collectivist society. Thomas is providing us some great insight. I really do appreciate that, Thomas. And again, sorry you got accidentally timed out. We've taken care of the problem. He's using the exact terminology as the Third Reich. That's on purpose. It's possible that he now thinks it's politically safe somehow for him to be this about loving Hitler. Well, I almost think that, and Thomas says he would not have said this in 1920 or 21. I almost think this is how he's trying to differentiate himself and maintain relevance. I mean, like, I think Nick Fuentes, this is always the person that Nick Fuentes has been, but I think also Nick Fuentes has gotten, to be quite frank, a lot angrier in the past couple of years. And I think he's really leaning into the anger. But I agree with you that, he wouldn't be saying this if Nick Fuentes wouldn't be saying this if he didn't feel as though it would be politically advantageous for him to say this. And that is what scares me the most. And like I said, I think that this ideology is way more, I think Kanye West, if he actually runs for president, is going to get a lot of votes. I think a lot of people, especially young white men, are going to be attracted to this a lot more than people think. And I think that's going to be terrifying for people to see.
That is really the source of the disagreement. My morality is not bound up in this authoritarian versus freedom thing. It's about God versus the devil. And the curious fact about the Jewish religion, which all the Jewish people that came to America in the last century as immigrants were religious. When the people came over at Ellis Island in the late 19th and early 20th century, they came from these rabbinical communities. They were all very religious. And so you've got all the Jews in America, elite, not elite. They're 1, 2, or 3 generations removed from these very religious, rabbinical Jewish communities. What's curious about the Jewish religion is it's the only one that has an extreme antipathy for Jesus Christ. Muslims revere Jesus as a prophet. Buddhists, Hindus, they review Jesus as a wise teacher. We all agree that Jesus existed. It's only the Jews that say that Jesus is burning in hell, boiling in semen and excrement, and say that his mother is a whore. And so you take these people that come from Europe, and again, it's their children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren who are now in charge of the elite institutions.
Well, sure. I mean,
which are
Nick, I'll
turned
say
out-
this. Ethan
Wait.
Klein came out on his huge podcast and said,
I mean, free speech does mean the ability to say things that Nick Fuentes isn't going to like. I'm sorry. And I'm going to be like, I'm not going to suggest, like, I don't know exactly what Jewish writings say on this because I haven't read them. So I don't know. I'm not trying to characterize that. But I know an awful lot of Jews who wouldn't actually speak that way about Jesus. They're just like, yeah, we don't believe he's the savior. We don't believe that he's the guy. Like, so Nick Fuentes is a collectivist. This is what people don't understand about this white identitarian bullshit. I was up to my ears in this crap a year and a half ago. These are collectivists. They are no different than Antifa on the left. They are no different. They are collectivists on the right. It is horseshoe theory in action.
and I would murder Jesus again. Jews should, basically kill Christians. And you didn't say kill Jews. So he went further than you and Ye, and no one decried it. And that is wrong. He said, I'm Jewish. I want to kill Jesus again. We should kill Jesus. We should basically kill Christians. And when he said it was like cute and funny and the media loved it. You didn't call for violence against anybody. So on a scale of me disagreeing with you, you're a 1, and Klein and the ADL are a 10. Look, I'm not friends with the ADL. I get what you're saying. I'm just saying that any authoritarian movement, I think, is extremely dangerous. And
like a Christian theocracy.
We're faced with the ADL and other authoritarian movements. So
and
I
Nick
think
Fuentes
coming out and invoking Hitler almost gives those groups cover. And now, as you said, they're trying to get $500 million from Congress.
Well,
I understand where you're coming from. I think maybe that's more of a tactical disagreement. And I told you over the weekend, maybe this is my youth. I'm willing to humble myself and say I'm young and zealous and idealistic, as everybody can relate to that. But I do think I might be onto something here, which is that we've watched for 20, 30 years and things just keep getting worse. And we saw what happened in 2020. The election was stolen. The whole first term was rigged.
No, it was not stolen.
And Trump comes back weaker than before.
I have to do, because I am on YouTube and I don't want to get a strike in the middle of the stream. The 2020 election was the most perfect election in the history of elections. There was absolutely nothing to be concerned about. We definitely shouldn't be concerned about the fact that they've been trying to convince us ever since the 2020 election that the 2020 election was the most perfect election in the history of elections. There was absolutely no fortification going on in the 2020 elections, and anyone who says otherwise is wrong. And I now can conclude my YouTube disclaimer that I have to provide a counterpoint anytime stuff like that is said. Otherwise, I get a strike on my channel. Oh, hi, Ethan. Hi. Oh, we're getting Ethan Rouse viewers again. Ethan, why are you so obsessed with me, Ethan? We're literally giving your boy time to talk here, Ethan. We're just listening to what he has to say. Why are you so obsessed with me that I can't even do a simple stream where I'm just knitting and hanging out without you doing stuff like this? No, I am never coming on your show, Ethan. That is absolutely never going to happen. I will give you blue balls for the rest of your life over this. If you want to keep sending people here, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to serve everyone an ad. I'm going to serve an ad so I can make money off the fact that you're sending your people here to disrupt when we're just trying to watch a stream, dude. Let me just block some people. Hang on. Every damn time. I swear to God, can't even just stream in peace. Kino Review says some beer money for stirring the shit pot in chat. You're welcome. Thank you, Kino. I appreciate that. No, because Ethan wants it so badly. You see, Ethan has been obsessed with me. Obsessed for about a year and a half. Desperate to get me to come on his show. And it will never, ever happens. Yes, you can insult Ethan. Yes, you can. Because Ethan, why would I want to put myself around people like this? Why on earth would I want to put myself around the white trash of the internet? Why on earth would I want to put myself around the white trash of the internet that is your audience? You have more viewers than me. That's absolutely true. But I don't want to appeal to the white trash of the internet, unlike you. So now let's keep going, guys. Thank you.
And I'm like, when are we going to confront head on the fundamental problems? When are we going to head on?
All right, stay there. We'll talk about what you think the fundamental problems are when we come back, and then I'll give you my response to that and more. Nick Fuentes is our guest. We're having a debate. We're having a discussion here, which the system doesn't want, but we're having it, and it's unfiltered and uncensored. He's saying whatever he wants.
So I want to say, so for Ethan's fans, if this is all you guys came in with, I wouldn't block you. Like, this is perfectly nice. Now, Blitz, I'm going to politely decline because I will never go on his show. It will never happen. But like, don't block Blitz or anything. Blitz is being nice and polite. I don't mind that.
Once I'm saying whatever I want. All right. Remember, we're still on over 400 radio stations. This is why we have 14 minutes of ads an hour, the industry standard. Though I do enjoy doing a lot of the commercial-free podcast that you find at man.video as well. We did a 3-hour one commercial-free this last Saturday with a major whistleblower from the Wuhan lab, the vice president of Eagle Health Alliance, proving Fauci created the bioweapon and released it and more. So incredibly important, and why the system wants us shut down. Now, Nick Fuentes is here with us, and he said going after Bill Gates and the Bilderberg Group is kind of this esoteric, little-known thing, but he's going up against the Jews. Well, I mean, folks, in case you've woken up and looked around,
you're right, Nuclear. They're not even good trolls.
The entire WEF is calling the shots. The big mega banks are running the show.
They're lazy trolls is what they are.
They're trying new lockdowns, new forced injections. That is not some esoteric little side issue that we're covering. In fact, no one was really covering it until we started hammering it in the last 28 years. So I'm very proud of that. That's what my films and books.
If you don't know who he is,
like
it's for the best.
Great
Trust
Reset
me.
and the War for the World are about. Now, I'm not saying Nick Fuentes doesn't have a right to say what he's saying or bring up what he's saying, because separately, the ADL is brainwashing school children on record that being white is inherently bad, and teaching kindergartners and first graders they are bad because they're white. Well, I mean, Hitler taught people were bad because of what group they were. So I'm like, I see the ADL as Hitler, and then people that are supposedly opposing it say, well, Hitler, compared to them is good. That's where I have the real breaking point. And so I asked the question earlier, and I want you to be able to get back into your point about the power structure and what you're doing. You'll have the floor for a few minutes. I'll shut up. But what about what I asked earlier that I forgot to get back to? The ADL wants 500 million. They want more control over society because of Kanye West, Ye's little comments here. I get he's obviously not a threat. He doesn't control people's bank accounts. That's a joke. But then people say, is Ye really working for them to first wear a red hat, say he's a Trump supporter, and now come out and do this? I've been around him. I've talked to him a lot for a long time, and I really don't think that's the case. Just to clear this up, I saw some of your supporters saying, Nick is so nice and got Kanye to his office and got him on air and introduced him to Kanye and to Ye, and then Jones did all that to poor Nick. I've been talking to Ye for a long time. He never come on the show. I gave his number to other folks.
I just want to say a big thank you to Rachel. Got Zen Your Work in the mail today. Looking forward to reading it. Guys, just so you know, I wrote a book before all this internet stuff called Zen Your Work. It's all about using mindfulness strategies at work to make your work experience better. I think it's a great book. If you want to check it out, it's on Amazon, all the other places as well. And I really do hope you enjoy it, Rachel.
To come on to Milo Yiannopoulos. He got Nick Fuentes in touch with him. So people want to blame me for this whole fiasco. I guess I'm involved. But that was me saying, here, get him on their shows. That's fine. Go where you want to go. They wanted to talk to him. I gave him the number for all of the groypers out there that are living in La La Land. Okay. So that's another little point I want to get to. Now I'm going to shut up. But what about this issue of him actually being the biggest fundraiser ever for the ADL? What do you say to that?
Well, I would say it's ridiculous. I think anybody that knows Ye knows that he doesn't work for anybody other than God, and his actions prove that. And I think if you've had a conversation with him for more than 10 minutes, you know that he's one of the most authentic, sincere people I've ever met. And like I said, people that meet him for 10 minutes, they come up and hug him in the street. They know that. As far as him being a fundraiser for the ADL, it flies in the face of the fact that if there were no ADL, he would be leading a great awakening. But it was the ADL that wants to shut him down. If the ADL was so in love with what he was doing, why would they go to Twitch, as an example, and say that any streamer that platforms Ye on their channel is going to get banned, and have Twitch remind everybody, tap at the sign and say, we prohibit hatred, we prohibit hate speech, and so on. The ADL is working overtime to make sure that he's deplatformed from Twitter, deplatformed from Twitch, that nobody can have him on their show. If it was really such a benefit to them, you think that they'd be going around promoting that stuff.
And this is how Nick Fuentes starts to get like a foothold in, because the ADL stuff that he and Alex Jones are complaining about is completely and totally true. The ADL is bullshit. The ADL is just, it is an activism arm of the Democratic Party. So like this is one of those instances where like he offers like a kernel of truth, the ADL is bad and wrong, and then they cover it in a mound of bullshit so that people are tricked into believing that Nick Fuentes is worth listening to because he gives them one nugget of truth and then feeds them nonsense after nonsense after nonsense after nonsense after nonsense. I mean, one thing I do have to say about Nick Fuentes is in comparison to Ethan Ralph, at least Nick Fuentes is smart. You know, Nick Fuentes, for all of his faults, and there are certainly many, 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 many faults, Nick Fuentes is very smart. Nick Fuentes knows exactly what he's doing. Nick Fuentes knows how to play this game. He is. And so this is why he's far more dangerous than someone like Ethan Ralph, who is just like, again, white trash of the internet. But Nick Fuentes will take advantage of Ethan Ralph in order to build his movement. Ethan Ralph is probably dumb enough to not realize that he's being used by Nick Fuentes. But that's exactly and precisely what's going on.
And that gets back to
no, that's why I raised the point. I know I don't think he works for the ADL, and I agree with you.
Right. And it gets back to the point which I was making before the break, which is that there is this, I think, very pernicious mindset that a lot of people have, that if you start to really go after the power structure, if you really say, you know what, it's Jewish gangsters, you know what, it's the Zionists, it's Israel, people have this idea in their head that there's something that's not clever or not subtle about this, that we've got to hide and be careful and play games. I don't want to play games. That's why I'm up with Ye, because Ye's not playing games anymore. I know that Ye's not going to be at the Republican Jewish Coalition retreat in Vegas begging the Jews to endorse them for the 24 run. I know he's not going to be at the ZOA begging the Zionists for their favor, for their patronage in the race like Trump did. I know he's not going to take $100 million from Sheldon Adelson and do all kinds of favors for Israel and leave Christians and white Americans out to dry. So, you know, we have to have the fight. Eventually, we've got to lean in and go in. We're in a war, not, of course, violently, but we've got to lean in and actually fight on the battlefield and have the confrontation. So many people in politics want to rationalize, and this isn't you, because you're a courageous man, and we love you. We see you as an uncle, quite honestly. I've been watching you since I was in high school, and all the Groypers have. We love you. But there are a lot of people in the institutions who are going to rationalize their cowardice by saying, oh, that's just not smart to say that. Oh, well, it wasn't strategic to say that. Well, at some point, whether it be now, then, later, we've got to say, you know what? The Jews are not going to control the destiny of America. Israel can no longer control the destiny of America. 1776 happened.
Nick Fuentes is setting himself up to be the de facto leader of this movement. Kanye West is not the leader of this movement. Let's just not get it twisted. Kanye West may be good at making hip-hop music. He may be good at designing clothes. Kanye West is not going to be a political leader. And that's because Kanye West doesn't understand how to navigate the political system. Nick Fuentes is using Kanye West for his star power and his celebrity so that Nick Fuentes will be the de facto leader of this movement. And that should frighten everyone. That's terrifying.
because we wanted to break away from a country thousands of miles away dictating to us what was happening in our own country. But now we're subordinating ourselves to
That's
Israel
exactly
in
right,
exactly the
Nick.
same
Well,
way.
sure, Nick. I mean, sure. So let me have a few minutes now. There's no doubt that there's foreign powers and corporations controlling America. And there's no doubt that there's a couple different big Jewish lobbies that are powerful. And there's the Chi-Com lobby and a bunch of other lobbies. But when you said earlier, well, you cover Bill Gates and the WEF and some obscure, stuff. Those guys literally have penetrated the governments, the cabinets. They're running things. They want a eugenics, depopulation, world government operation. And if you actually look who fills it up, it's a bunch of former, Nazis, grandkids. Well, I'm not saying it's a Nazi conspiracy. I'm saying the real power structure is a scientific transhumanist movement. And while we're all down here battling over all these different ethnic systems, they are taking over. That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah, and I understand.
Alex Jones
that.
is right about that.
A lot of it is
roughly right. I
obfuscation.
don't know that I agree with
like,
everything
for
he
example,
said. But
the World Economic Forum is a forum. And when you look at who goes to Davos for the retreat, it's all the top government leaders, it's all the business leaders, and they all are beholden to Jewish interests. So that'd be like
I
saying,
literally just
we're
said
going to hold
that.
a conference in a Sheraton hotel and say the Sheraton hotel is the problem, not the people occupying it and giving the speeches and their background.
Sure, but I mean, the Bilderberg Group is the most powerful organization in the world from our research. The World Economic Forum is their mouthpiece. So when we say that, I mean, this is the real supreme mafia in my view. George Soros is there, all this. So let me raise this. You bring up the head of the ADL going on programs, and here's a clip saying, well, since Ye says we have power, we had to use our power and crush him. Why would he even say that? Talk about a dog whistle. Here it is.
Yes, that's exactly what's happening.
Proving somebody like Kanye right. Because Kanye says, hey, Jewish people have all the power, and then he loses everything.
Well, look, the insidious nature of anti-Semitism and these tropes about power is Kanye can say these things. Jews have all the power, they're controlling everything. And if we don't get him, if we don't deal with that, the myth spreads and it takes root.
If we don't get him, if we don't shut him down, the myth spreads. Wow. What a...
That kind of seems like the head of the ADL was proving exactly the point that Kanye West was trying to make. And listen, you guys know I'm not a great defender of Kanye West. I think that all the things that he said are bullshit. But again, like, there's something to be said for the fact that how much money has Kanye West lost? I wanted to ask Joshua last night if Kanye West would ever be able to recover from this. I don't think Kanye West will be able to recover from this. So there is something to be said for the idea that Kanye West posted a tweet and then basically had his entire career destroyed based on a single tweet. And then he continued to self-sabotage and self-sabotage and self-sabotage and make the problem much worse than it already was, and it was already pretty bad. But like, there is something to be said about the fact that this all happened because of one single tweet. People take Twitter way too fucking seriously.
He's saying exactly what Ye is saying.
That's right. Well, and that's exactly what I'm trying to get at here is when you go on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram, and I'm not saying you meaning you, but anybody for that matter, when anybody goes on Twitter and says, you could say Bill Gates runs the media, you could say the World Economic Forum runs the media. We have to acknowledge there is this strain of thought in conservatism where it's taking us in a direction that the elites are not afraid of, the elites don't really care about, and we know that because of the enforcement. We know that it's like that plane with all the bullet holes in it that comes back and they say, where are we going to fortify the plane? Well, the planes that are coming back with the bullet holes, those are the places where the plane can afford to be shot. And it's sort of the same thing when you go on Twitter and say, Bill Gates runs the media, the Chi-Coms runs the media, crickets. But you go on Twitter and say the Jews run the media, and you have the ADL chairman going to Adidas, pulling your $1 billion deal.
Well, Nick, I got to disagree with you there. They've been really suppressing us with the WEF and the New World Order and Bill Gates. They've been sent, that came out in the documents. They have been censoring the living hell out of people challenging that. We'll be right back. Stay with us. All right, Nick Fuentes is our guest. We're having a debate here, a discussion about these issues. He says he's good to take phone calls coming up later in the next hour hit some of the other big issues. But so, Nick, watching what the ADL is doing, watching what the left's doing and their racial-based political system, how do you see this shaking out? What do you see happening the next few years with all of this? Because I got to tell you, I actually saw the corporate media come out against you and Ye on the air, and I personally, don't like any flavor of authoritarianism, and thought it was more of a publicity stunt, just what I picked up from it. I mean, I don't know what was planned. You're saying it wasn't planned. I believe you, because it felt completely unplanned. But at the end of the day, people have their First Amendment. How do you see this attempt to crush everybody going? Elon Musk is I think, not perfect, but he's going a long way. The power structure is totally discredited. And what I saw on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook, everywhere else, without even trying to look, was most people liked it. They weren't even anti-Semitic. They weren't even against the Democratic Party and all that. But they were really, really just sick of the censorship, saying, screw it, burn down the whole world. Is that what you're getting at?
It's something like that, but it's a little bit bigger because it's
a good point, Ross.
It's not just sort of this directionless,
I don't disagree with
hey,
this.
Screw it, burn it all down. It's a lot more directed and precise, which is we're going to finally say it with our chest. A lot of people, I think, were dissatisfied with the Trump presidency in the first term and seemingly how little progress we made. That's something I'd sort of told him at the dinner was, look, in 2016, the message was sort of insufficient. Here we are in 24, coming up on the 24 cycle, and it seems like it's been moderated. It's more moderate than it was in 16. Things are getting worse. We're running out of time. And we're retreating, we're moving backwards. So in terms of joining up with Ye and getting on board with this movement, it's about getting behind a guy who's saying we need to hold America to a Christian standard. It's about saying we need to call out the Jewish media. And he's been saying, look, we don't care about your, honestly.
The reason that the left is more dangerous right now than the right is because the left has power. That is the only thing that makes them more dangerous than the right now. It's not that the right is better, because they're not better. It's not that the right wouldn't be authoritarian if they had power, because they would be. And Nick Fuentes right now is flat out telling us that the right would be authoritarian and try to implement a Christian theocracy if they got into power. And I don't think this is just Nick Fuentes. Before people say, this is just one person, Carl, this is not everyone, stop generalizing, which is exactly what people are going to say. I would say, no, I've seen this on the conservative right since about February or March of 2021. Because the only thing they know how to focus on is social issues. Make no mistake, if the Republicans got a significant amount of power, they would start being little Christian authoritarians to try to force their religious values on everyone else through legislation. And then they would become just as big a problem as the left. The problem is authoritarianism. It is not Democrat versus Republican. It is not Antifa versus Nick Fuentes. The problem is authoritarianism versus libertarianism. Either you want to force your views on other people, or you don't want to force your views on other people. It's really that simple. But make no mistake, the right would be just as dangerous as the left if the right had any power. But they suck so badly at winning elections, they don't have political power.
We don't care about your grandmother that died in the Holocaust. I'm sorry. That's always what they come with. It's always the guilt trip. It's the emotional propaganda. I know that sounds callous. I know that sounds insensitive, but it's no different than any of this other racial grievance politics.
Hang on, I just want to rewind that because I was talking over. I just want to rewind that to make sure everyone heard it.
Up with Ye and getting on board with this movement. It's about getting behind a guy who's saying we need to hold America to a Christian standard. It's about saying we need to call out the Jewish media. And he's been saying, look, we don't care about your, honestly, we don't care about your grandmother that died in the Holocaust. I'm sorry. That's always what they come with. It's always the guilt trip. It's the emotional propaganda. I know.
That is so very Christian of Nick Fuentes, isn't it? Isn't it? Doesn't Nick Fuentes ooze the beautiful, pure love of Christ when he says, we don't care if your grandmother died in the Holocaust? Doesn't that come across as just like the most loving, kind, peaceful thing that you could possibly say? And listen, I'm someone that believes that everyone chooses when they die, and there were probably spiritual reasons that people chose to die in an incredibly violent and oppressive event like that. I think that from a spiritual perspective, that's probably true. But I wouldn't in the same breath say, I don't care that your grandmother died in the Holocaust, because I do care that your grandmother died in the Holocaust. That must be a really hard thing to have dealt with. Nick Fuentes just legitimately doesn't care. How very Christ-like of him.
I know that sounds callous. I know that sounds insensitive, but it's no different than any of this other racial grievance politics over slavery or over colonization or genocide. I see no difference between AOC calling us colonizers and these Jewish groups calling us Holocaust deniers. It's the same weaponization of racial grievance to browbeat us into submission. We've got to make our country free and independent and strong, and that means
so what you're saying is the left keeps calling everybody Hitler. The left keeps saying all white people are bad. The left keeps saying Western civilization is evil. And so you're saying I didn't kill your great-grandparents, your grandparents. I don't deserve to be called this. So if you're going to call me this, I'm going to go ahead and embrace it. What you're saying is you're not going to live in guilt anymore.
That's exactly right. We can't change the past, and God bless all the victims of every tragedy in human history, but it's 2022. We live in America.
Well, let's talk about this. They've got national statistics out that are pretty accurate. 2% of the South owned slaves during slavery. That's a very conservative number. It might have been lower, but 2%. And something like maybe 10% of white population in the U.S. had some ancestor involved in slavery. But somebody getting off an airplane from Poland or from Russia or from Czechoslovakia or from Germany or from the Netherlands who never had an ancestor involved with slavery or from Iceland is immediately told you owe reparations and you're a bad person for what you never did or your family never did. That is preposterous. At the same time, I am sad that George Soros helped round up Jews and get them killed. I am sorry that Hitler did things, but I didn't do it. Both my grandfathers went and fought Hitler, and then I get the ADL up there saying I'm Hitler. So
that is an interesting point about Soros. I just don't get why aren't people why hasn't George Soros been just severely canceled for his past? Because George Soros had more to do with people dying in the Holocaust than a lot of people, direct involvement with people dying in the Holocaust. So why is he in the position that he's in? I don't understand.
Then using Hitler as a touchstone because I don't see Hitler as a good person.
Well, I like what Scott Adams said about it, which is that it sort of reframes the entire debate. I mean, have you considered, and Richard Spencer said this as well, and I think we disagree on a lot. He's not a Christian, and that's a big source of disagreement. But what about this fact that our entire morality and our whole political spectrum is defined by Hitler? It's like reductio ad Hitler. Every argument has to come back to, well, Hitler was the most evil one. So whoever's the most proximate to Hitler is the worst one, is the bad one.
To be fair, you could actually make the argument that Hitler was not the most evil one. He was pretty fucking evil, don't get me wrong. But you can make the argument that Mao was worse. You can make the argument that Stalin's right up there. You can make the argument that Pol Pot was worse. I'm just saying.
I'm a Christian. I'm from Chicago. I was born in 1998. Hitler, the Holocaust. What does this have to do with me? What does this have to do with our country?
Again, it's a rejection of the Hollywood ethos that we're all Hitler and Hollywood is God. I get it. Let's play a clip of Scott Adams, the creator of Dilbert and philosopher, since you raised that point. Here it is.
I would not rule out the fact that Ye is trying to break the system. And he might. Instead of, he's not trying to win the game. He's trying to throw the board up. You know what I mean? He knows he can't win the game because he didn't make the rules. The rules are made by other people, and he doesn't have an advantage there. So if he plays the game by its rules, he loses. But Ye is not the person who loses. It's not in his nature to not think he can succeed. So he just takes it to the next step. What is the next step? Next step is you throw the whole board over. So he came into Twitter.
Scott Adams is probably right about this.
Alien logo that he might have known was not provocative in that context or as provocative. He may have tested the limits of Musk's free speech and broken. In my opinion, he broke Elon Musk. Elon Musk.
Yeah, I don't agree. I don't disagree with Scott Adams on that. And again, I think that testing the bounds of speech is good. I wish Elon Musk had not banned Kanye West. I really wanted to see what else Kanye West would say if he was allowed to stay on that platform. And I think more people should be testing the bounds of speech. But like when you're playing these games, it's like you have to do it in a smart way, and you have to be aware that a misstep can backfire spectacularly.
And it wasn't because Elon Musk is dumb, because he's not. It's not because Elon Musk is uninformed, because.
And I'll tell you what the big takeaway here is. The media grabbed this story and then dropped it very quickly because they didn't like the way it was going. Did you notice that too, Nick?
Absolutely. Yeah, they're terrified. They don't want to have the conversation.
They really did drop it very quickly.
He goes on these shows and they browbeat.
You know, that's actually a really good point. Like, where was the media? Like, there should have been far more media outrage after that InfoWars interview. Why did they drop the story so quickly? I mean, we're still getting outrage about January 6th, and it's been almost 3 fucking years. Or 2 years. Sorry, 2 years. They're still doing outrage streams every night on MSNBC about January 6th. So why did they drop the outrage about this so quickly when some might argue that what happened on InfoWars with Ye saying, I love Hitler for an hour and a half, like, or more, even longer than that, why was that dropped so quickly? Huh.
Beat him and they say, why did you say the death con? Why did you say, don't you care? And he says, well, what about me? What about my contracts? What about what's going on in my world? And they say, well, yeah, we'll get to that. We'll follow up with that. You know, we'll circle back in a minute, but nobody's circling back. They don't care. And they see that in the comment sections on Twitter, they see in the polls, people agree with Ye. More people. It's the same effect that there was in 2016. They called it the silent Trump vote. I know you remember a lot of the Zoomers who follow me. They were like in middle school when the election happened. I was freshman in college. But they called it the silent Trump vote, where people agreed with Trump. But you know how the culture was. If you wear a MAGA hat, as I did on a college campus, people attacked me in public. They threw stuff at me. You know, they said nasty things about me online. And more people than many would care to admit feel the same way. They're like, we don't care about this Holocaust museum business. We're sick of this ADL coming around and saying there's 6 million and all this. It's ridiculous. It's, in some sense, we're already past that point. If we're at that point of ridicule, if we're at that point of indifference, all that needs to happen is for the rest of the process to play out where types like Ye, people like Ye, visionaries, courageous people are going to stand up and say, you know, we don't care. Do whatever you want.
I mean, I just got to say, though, again, the other polar opposite should not be Hitler. It should be like George Washington or you know, Jesus Christ. What do you want to cover next hour? And we'll also put your websites, Cozy TV, where people can find your show, and other shows. We'll put that on screen. We're at Infowars.com and Band.video for the new viewers and people that are tuning in right now. But what do you want to hit next hour?
Hang on. Well, as they're moving into the second part of this, I just want to remind everyone that might be new here, double standard saying, please don't ban me. There are 2 rules in my chat. Number 1, don't be a dick. That means you don't insult me. You don't insult other people in the chat. You can say whatever you want about the people on the screen. Don't say overtly like anti-Semitic shit. Don't post hate symbols. I'm going to add those for today, you know, just for reasons. But as long as you're cool, man, and you're just expressing your opinion, you're not going to get banned. Just be nice. That's all I ask. All right, guys, mount that like button for me. Let's continue.
Well, I just want to say I agree with you about Jesus. It's Jesus first. He's our leader, not Hitler. Okay, we love Jesus, and we want Jesus to appoint a leader to follow in 24, and I think we'll get one. You can find me on cozy.tv/Nick. And for the next hour, I'd love to get into some of the other things Ye's been talking about. You know, he said a lot. He said a lot on the show. He talked a lot about pornography. He talked about the family, Instagram, trafficking. There's a lot that he's putting out there. It's such a shame that people are so hung up on the taboo, politically
Sure, but he had to know
stuff.
The taboo. I get it. But you guys did bring up the taboo, and I think that's the whole point. But I think, you know, I have a clip of you saying that you didn't like Hitler. But then you...
Yeah.
So, were you a closet Hitler supporter before, and now you're a full Hitler?
I'm not a closeted Hitler supporter. And I want to say this. Are you calling me baby Hitler so the time travelers will kill me? You ever hear everybody always says? If you went back in time, would you kill some moral dilemma? Would you kill Hitler as a baby? Are you trying to confuse the time travelers?
I didn't think of that. All right, Nick, stay there. First Amendment, folks. People don't like it, but it's here. It's alive and well. And the people are waking up. They're saying no to censorship. And that's why we should have every idea out. We have an open, free debate about it. We're going to go to break. Please don't forget, do your Christmas shopping at InfoWarsStore.com. We're fighting the globalists toe to toe. We need funds to stay on air. InfoWarsStore.com, InfoWars Life, incredible products, DNA Force Plus, Vitamin Mineral Fusion, still in stock, but selling out quickly. And the new line, InfoWars MD, is so amazing. We got 95% curcuminoid with the new product.
Does anyone actually buy this stuff? I'm honestly curious because I would never, ever, 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 ever buy something that I would be putting in my body from InfoWars. I'm telling you that right now. That just seems like a bad idea. But like, I'm honestly curious if people buy this stuff and they've had good experiences with it, because I could, of course, be wrong. Oh, every day of my life. Every day of my life. But guys, if you want to know more about this, you can go to survivingcarriesmith.substack.com. Let's see what Carrie Smith's cancel horde. Just this is, hang on, I know you guys can't see this, but let's see what Carrie's cancel horde is posting about me today. Oh, just typical nonsense. All right. survivingcarriesmith.substack.com, and you can read about why I have a woke leftist cancel horde following me around Twitter every day of my life, run by former SJW, but still acting like an SJW, Carrie Smith of Deprogrammed. Anyway, let's continue.
Turmeric 95. We've also got the great nootropic mushroom blast, mushroom boost. It's all there. So many other great products at InfoWarsStore.com.
Goonies fan claims it works.
Or call toll free 888-253-3139. But seriously, that whole line is amazing. The first 10 products are out. Turmeric 95, Libido RX, Better Mood, Nitric Boost, Mushroom Max, Angel's Vitality, Superfood Greens, and more. Alex Jones here, back live with Nick Fuentes for another hour. I'm going to give the number out at the start of the next segment for folks that want to talk about that interview a week and a half ago. The state of the world, nothing censored. All we ask for is a good, clean phone line, and that you have your points, and we move on to the next person. Your phone calls are coming up. So, Nick, this is a short segment. Some stations don't carry it. A bunch of stations join us in about 6 minutes. What else do you want to get into on the whole Ye interview? And then we'll shift gears into some of the other stuff that you and Ye were talking about.
Well, like I said, I think that there's a lot more to the Ye situation than people are saying right now. People are very hung up on this issue, and you said, and I think you're right about it. It is provocative, and of course, you know, I had some sense that it was going to the media coverage would go in that direction. But there's something really special going on with Ye, because it's not the only thing that he's talking about. You know, when I saw that video that he put up several weeks ago talking about the January 6th supporters and the loyalists that stood behind Trump, and how a lot of them were hung out to dry in favor of lawyers and types like Jason Miller and others. When I saw that, I said, this is like a serious political figure. I said, that's a serious political contender. He's saying the same thing that people in Washington, D.C. who worked in the Trump administration were saying for the last 6 years. And I know you have sources there, too. All the people that I talked to in the White House would complain constantly about how actually it would be a mark against you if you were trying to get a job in the Trump White House, that you worked on the Trump campaign in 2016. So all the people that supported and believed in Trump, all the people that supported and believed in his agenda.
That doesn't actually surprise me at all. Trump is the worst staffing person in the history of staffing people. Trump hires the absolute worst people. He makes some of the worst decisions when it comes to hiring. One of the biggest problems that Trump had when he was in the White House is he hired the wrong fucking people. And then he would fire them, and then he would replace them with people who are even worse than the people he fired. He is a horrible judge when it comes to actually hiring people. So on this one, on this tiny point, I do agree with Nick Fuentes.
They were hung out to dry. They weren't hired, passed over. And we saw the White House, and now it looks like this 2024 campaign had been infiltrated and subverted by people that were on the Rubio campaign and people in the Bush White House and sort of the worst of the worst, people like Bill Barr and Mike Pence and Mike Pompeo and Nikki Haley, who was she was the UN ambassador, and John Bolton. And so I saw something like that, and that's something that he's been talking about a lot. And in some sense, the Hitler thing has overshadowed that. But when the dust settles on that, and it will, it's a quick news cycle, I think people are going to be very, very eager and interested to hear what he has to say. It's a true and a real alternative to a lot of the junk that we've been getting. We're supposed to believe our two options in 24 are going to be DeSantis and Trump. And DeSantis, I think you like him. I'm not really a huge fan. And Trump, like I said, in a very moderated form, sort of low energy. I still love him. I'd still die for him. I still think he's a great hero and one of the great Americans, but he's not the same guy that he was in 16. Everybody recognizes that. And so a big part of what's so exciting for me as a young guy in the last couple months with everything that's been going on is here's something out of all the stuff that we were put through, you and I, in the last 2 years and many others between January 6th and the pandemic and BLM and the election fraud. Here's finally a light at the end of the tunnel. Here's finally a North Star, west, but maybe a West Star. Here's something that we can finally look at and actually get excited about.
Sure. What do you make of Senator Paul?
And what about?
I think he'd be a great president.
I like Rand Paul. I like him a lot. I met him actually in 2016, and I actually worked. Maybe I didn't work on his campaign. I think I campaigned with Cruz actually during the Republican primary in 16, but I was an early supporter of it when I'm talking about when I was a senior in high school, but I was a supporter of his. I still am. I think he's very intelligent, but he's a libertarian and he's just not really my kind of conservative.
Because
I know you're
Nick
more
is an
libertarian, so I think
authoritarian.
there's more overlap, but I'm really more in favor of bringing back a very strong Christian flavor of nationalism. And I don't know that I love that term. I feel like it's being hijacked, but I want the government to be Christian, and I want us to have a true nationalism. So it's a little bit stronger.
We certainly shouldn't have an anti-Christian government. Nick Fuentes is our guest.
We shouldn't have any religion in government. We shouldn't have any religion in government at all. The First Amendment says that we will not establish a state religion. Worship however you want in your private life. The government should not be religious at all. Not at all. Save that for your home. Instill your values in your home. Do not force your values on people who do not want them with threat of force from the state. I don't know why this is so hard for people to understand. You are no better than the woke left if you become authoritarians. You are no better than them. You are no different than them.
He's saying on a scale of 1 to 10, he's like a 2. And you got the ADL just so pro-Hitler and just so
I haven't forgotten.
White, promoting racism.
I remember that.
So frightened by both groups. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
What you want, then? Hey, yay, right after this, I'm going to say you're crazy. I'm going to take your family away from you. We're not done with you yet. You cannot cause free thought. We have to control the history books. We have to control the banks. And we have to go and kill people. Also, we're in the...
No. You're suggesting we get rid of 2/3 of the doctors?
Not get rid of, like not violently get rid of them.
Fire them?
I think that Jews are very intelligent, but they don't deserve to be in charge of everything because they don't put Christ.
Well, how do you legislate that?
They need to work for Christians. Jews should work for Christians. I'll hire a Jewish person in a second if I knew they weren't a spy and I could look through their phone and follow into their house and have a camera all in their living room.
Who are they spying for? Oh my God.
No, I want to holler the loud funny.
here's the silver lining. It tends to go from 0 to 60. Like, they're not wrong about that. But there's a reason for that. And the reason is them, okay? When it comes to the Jews, every society where has gone down with these people, it always goes from 0 to 60. It never starts with burning all the Talmuds in Paris, okay? It never starts that way. But frequently, it seems to end that way, and it gets there very rapidly. Doesn't start there, but it frequently ends there. But I would say that the Jews had better start being nice to people like us, because what comes out of this is going to be a lot uglier and a lot worse for them than anything that's being said on this show or has been said on this show.
That seems a little anti-Semitic and kind of threatening. That seems. Do you know how the right got all pissed off about Dylan Mulvaney saying tweets live on the internet forever, like, and trying to, and making it off like Dylan Mulvaney was trying to threaten them because Dylan Mulvaney said tweets live on the internet forever? Well, Nick Fuentes just did exactly the same thing. He just did exactly the same thing to the Jews. And of course, no one on the conservative right is talking about this because they don't like to admit that this element exists in their space. In fact, they will do every single thing they can to deny that this element lives in their space and appeals to their fan base, because they make money off of Nick Fuentes' fan base. So they don't want to say anything against him because that would piss off their white trash base. My God. But Nick Fuentes just did the exact same thing that the conservative right has been complaining and reeing about in regards to Dylan Mulvaney for a week.
In spite of the fact that I have been bullied by the Jews and I have been oppressed and slandered and lied about and attacked by the Jews, I have been completely precise, for the most part, and even-handed and nuanced about my view about the situation. And I'm also a Christian.
No.
Which is going to matter. Because
you're not, dude.
It could be a lot worse, I'm going to say, than this show. And what's going to come out of this could be, like I said, it could be a lot uglier than what we say on the show. I know that there are other people that are going to push farther.
The right and the left are the same.
Once this conversation really starts. And the Jews are going to look at people like me in America first and say, damn, I miss when it was just that funny guy. And we pushed so hard and this and that because history has shown that once this train gets going.
You know, blacks are overrepresented in violent crime. But when you meet an individual black person, you don't apply that. You start with a fresh slate every time you meet someone. Do you do that with Jews? Nope.
Hang on. I'm going to say this. If you get timed out and then whine about the fact that you got timed out, then I'm going to block you because you are breaking rule number 2 in the chat. And I'm not going to have it. I will not have whining on this channel. I deal with this every fucking day on Twitter. I don't want to do it anymore. No whining. No, I am not a Christian. I have done multiple streams about my spiritual beliefs, and I do believe in God. I don't believe in your God. I don't believe in your books. If you want to know about my spiritual beliefs, then you can go watch those other videos. See, and now I got to ban you, bro. You were being so good. You were being so good. But your feels got hurt and you lashed out probably because you're a white trash incel in your mom's basement. And now I got to block you. Goodbye. No. No, he has not been purged from the right. He has absolutely not been purged from the right. That's not true in any way.
This intervention isn't going very well.
All right. I mean, I just got to say it. I think basing things on race is really bad news. But the left and the ADL and others are saying all white people are racist and demonizing our founding fathers and trying to destroy our country. And so I wonder why it is. What I see is the ADL's trying to conjure this anti-Semitism to get more funding and more power and more control over people. And they worship people like George Soros and others that help round up Jews. And so many of the Jews that have been killed in history under the name of this have been completely innocent people. I really just don't think Jews are one big monolith, Nick. And
Alex Jones,
again,
voice of
you
reason.
really, I think, spoke to it earlier in the last hour where you said, well, you're off over there on these kind of side issues of Bill Gates, the WEF, and, this stuff. But that, we're over here with the Jews. The WEF and the big corporations, the New World Order, and Xi Jinping are mass murdering people, are bringing in tyranny and lockdowns and world IDs and controls. And whether they're Chinese or whether they're German or Jewish, I'm just opposing these tyrannical objectives. And I kind of want a big tent for all of that. And I just think it's a First Amendment, but I do think it's dangerous to then sit there and just invoke all of this and say that Jews are the powerful Jewish mafias who basically run the world. I mean, is that what you're saying?
Yes. And I think they do. I don't even think it's really disputed anymore after what happened to Ye and that clip that you played with Greenblatt from the ADL. Look at him. I mean, he was somebody who even in 2018, 4 years ago, was saying things that are regarded as politically incorrect. And people throw that around. They say, oh, that's politically incorrect.
I wonder if Nick sees Jews everywhere. Is Nick paranoid that the Jews are watching him all the time? Does he see Jews around him all the time? Like Nick is probably going to suggest in his Christian theocracy that in order to be able to identify the enemy among us, they all have to wear symbols of their Jewishness. Like, I don't know, a yellow star. I bet you that's what he's going to suggest. Because Nick wants to know where the Jews at any point. He's so fucking paranoid. Again, this guy's a collectivist. He is not an individualist. He's a collectivist. And we should all be afraid of collectivists in whatever form they come in, whether they're woke on the left or woke on the right. And woke can exist on both sides. My definition of woke is authoritarianism. I will tell you the rules of the chat. The rules of the chat are, number 1, don't be a dick. Do not insult me. Do not insult other people. Number 2, no whining. That's it. Reality is not collectivist. Reality, Zaza, is that you are a little woke authoritarian. And so you want to try to force everyone to see the world the way you do. I exist in a world where if people disagree with me, I don't care as long as they leave me alone and don't hurt my stuff or don't take my stuff. You don't believe that. You think that if people leave you alone and don't take your stuff, you still have the right to enforce your worldview on them. And that is not correct. I'm sorry. You are a little woke authoritarian.
Like it's this, broad, nebulous thing. It's actually very specific. He said like partisan conservative talking points in 18 and he was just fine. And he went on Tucker Carlson and he called out China and called out a lot of things and he was just fine. Then he switched up on the Jews. He was banned from Fox News. He was banned from Daily Wire. And, I don't have to go through the whole list, but we've all seen the cascading effect of this. Adidas deal cut, Gap deal cut. His bank froze tens of millions of dollars. It's unbelievable if that doesn't prove it. And then the ADL is going around now. And they're not just fundraising, but they're passing out a letter in Congress and they're demanding that nobody give him a platform. They're getting him kicked off Twitter. It goes on and on and on. And so I don't even think it's even in dispute anymore that Jews have maybe you would qualm about whether it's all of the power or just like a lot of it or a majority of it. But it's true that there are these and there are Jewish groups, Republican Jewish Congress, Zionist Organization of America, ADL. These are all Jewish groups. World Jewish Congress called for Apple and Spotify. And that's kind of like asking a question in itself. What is the World Jewish Congress? Did you know that the State Department's definition of anti-Semitism says that if you believe that Jews conspire on a global level, that you're an anti-Semite? Well, then how do you acknowledge the existence of the World Jewish Congress, which is real? They did an article about it in Newsweek last week, without being an anti-Semite. I mean, they also go on to say that if you call Israel comparable to Hitler or the Nazis, which you have 20 years ago in 2001, they say that's a definition of anti-Semitism.
Well, what I said is some of the ADL has had to take it off their website, but it's on the Wayback Machine, said they support anti-race mixing laws in Israel, and they support basically taking lands away from people that aren't Jewish, and they support. I mean, they said we can't have replacement migration or Israel won't be Jewish. So, I mean, I'm not denying that Israel lives by a second set of rules, but how do you square it up that Jews in Israel have been under the most draconian lockdowns in the world after China and have been given the deadly shot?
I agree with
one of
this.
the highest death rates from the shot. I mean, if they're all powerful, why is this biomedical tyranny targeting them and doing that to them?
Well, I think that that's just a symptom of the elite. I think that's a symptom of hubris. I don't know, for example, that the vaccine is created to kill people or something. I think that the COVID thing's very complicated. There's a lot of journalism to be done there.
Just kind of like Bill Gates, WF, Alex is off on a side tangent. Yeah. The shot's not the centerpiece of their takeover. It's not depopulation, 20 million dead at least, erases your immune system. And Israel is the worst country for being given the poison shot. Their lockdowns are the second worst.
Well, it wouldn't even make any sense, because if they were going around giving everybody the vaccine and that's supposed to take out everybody, well, who are the most vaccine hesitant? Who's going to be remaining when they're, and don't get me wrong, I think the shot is deadly. I didn't get vaccinated at all. But the idea that this is some kind of, that the Georgia Guidestones are dictating global politics, I think is just ridiculous. And I think it's one of these things that
consortium led by the founder of CNN put that up. I mean, they do believe in depopulation. As I was saying, Nick, there is a larger depopulation globalist agenda, and that gets into who funded Hitler and how they set him up, and this powerful group that's next level. It's the transhumanists, man. It's to me, that's what's going on.
Yeah. Can someone explain to me in a chat-sized summary what is Alex Jones's argument regarding the transhuman stuff? Because I don't know what it is. Can someone give me like just a quick high-level overview of that? And in the meantime, I'll remind everyone to mount that like button, please. I feel like I'm being incredibly fair to Nick Fuentes today, even though Ethan Ralph sent his supporters. Let's see. That is actually not an explanation in any way. So no, that doesn't actually help me at all. Let me see. Interesting. Okay, here we go. Basically, the elites are satanic and want to upload their consciousness and use bioengineering to escape death and want to kill everyone and inherit Earth. So it's like one of those sci-fi movies where they like upload. It's like, what was that fucking Johnny Depp movie? Transcendence. Awful movie. Awful movie that I've seen way too many times. All right, thank you. I appreciate the explanation for that. Oh, here's another one. Transhumanism, humanity doesn't matter and is seen by a group as a stage of human evolution. Therefore, those who are above humans and the ones left behind. Okay. That makes a lot of sense. I appreciate the explanations, guys. Thank you. Oh, like Neuralink? Got it.
Yeah, I just don't know how convincing that is. I think when you look at these raw demonstrations,
how convincing? Hitler was for government push euthanasia. Hitler was for abortion. Hitler was for all these things the left supports today.
Yeah, but I just think if you look at the conversation these past 3 weeks, it's pretty clear who's in control, and it's not Bill Gates and it's not China. And take a look at, and listen, I don't mean this in any kind of offensive way, but you went on Crowder. They tried to get Elijah
I'll let you finish when we come back. We got a hard break. All right, we got hard satellite breaks. I'm sure the gropers will say that was all a big conspiracy, but our breaks are at 16 and 29 and like 46. So we had to go to break there. The point you were making, Nick, when we went to break, please continue.
Yeah, I'm between you and Turmeric 95. I'm getting killed in this debate.
No. You were bringing up Steven Crowder.
I know. I'm kidding. I'm giving you a hard time. But the point I'm trying to make is, I'm somebody who everybody knows me as like the Holocaust denier, anti-Semite. Yeah, I talk about other
exactly,
things other
Nick.
than that
Yes,
too,
that's
you know,
exactly.
but
No,
that's
you
sort
really
of
don't,
what I'm
bro.
billed as, labeled, categorized. And I'm not permitted.
I'm glad that
basically
Nick has
anywhere.
self-awareness anyway.
I'm banned from everything. I'm banned from all social media. I'm also banned and basically not allowed. I'm ostracized in the entire conservative movement. The point I'm trying to make, and again, it's not a competition. I'm not trying to give you a hard time, but you did a show last week with Crowder, and Crowder's talking about, I've been in many a synagogues. And Crowder's a guy who hasn't, he's pretended not to know me for the last 2 years. Now that this big news story came out, now he knows who I am, and he hates me. And he's doing Oppo research, and I'm a rabid anti-Semite. I was on Elijah Schaefer's show on The Blaze almost a year ago exactly, and he almost got fired for having me on the show. And so clearly there is some disparity in treatment between people that are talking about this very heavily and people that are not. And I think everybody knows that you derive some benefit and there is some cover. And I hear this refrain my entire career. Well, it's those left-wing Jews, and they're not even really Jews, or it's those atheists, but they're atheists. They're not Jews, they're atheists. But these Hasidic Jews, these Orthodox, these religious ones, they're our closest allies. I mean, these guys are really right-wing. I think you get a little bit of cover for that. I'm not going to lie. I don't think you're getting calls, but I do think that I don't think I'm saying telling out of tales out of school here, that does provide some cover for people to hedge and say that
really,
these right-wing
I'm
Jews
getting
are okay.
cover. If I'm getting cover, I didn't know it. Take Dr. Zev Zelenko, who early on exposed COVID, had a lot of courage and died recently. And he's an awesome guy. I've actually studied the geopolitics and sub-politics, different nations quite a bit. I find it fascinating. The left-wing Jews in Israel persecute the Orthodox Jews and take away their kids and do all sorts of stuff to them. So like you're saying that Hasidic Jews, I mean, one of the biggest groups of Hasidic Jews doesn't think Israel should exist, so I think it's more complex, Nick, than what you're saying.
I agree with you that there are Jewish factions, but the one thing that they're all on the same page about is that they're all on Team Jew, and they all spit on Christians. And this is a well-known thing.
Oh,
you go
my
to Israel,
God.
and they literally spit on Christians.
I am so sick of hearing that Christians are the poor, oppressed minority in the world, because they're not. I am sorry. The fact that Nick Fuentes can talk about implementing a Christian theocracy is all the fucking proof you need that they are not poor and oppressed and abused. It is, if there's any piece of advice that I could give to Christians out there, it's to stop the persecution complex. You are not persecuted. You're not. In the vast majority of places in the world. Not everywhere. China is going to persecute all religions. They're going to persecute everyone equally. So Christians would be persecuted in China, but so would like every other fucking religion that exists. So that you don't get special fucking bonus points because you get the same treatment as everyone else. You are not like the biggest thing that prevents people from taking Christianity seriously is this fucking persecution complex. Well, no, they absolutely don't want my advice, which is why they will do nothing but to continue to piss people off. I am perfectly fine with Christians with a persecution complex continuing to act like they are a poor, persecuted minority and oh, poor them, woe is them, woe is them, woe is them. Because you're just going to keep pissing people off, which will never allow you to gain power at all.
And it's so tragic that there are so many Christian Zionists or Christian Philo-Semites. These are not the Jews of the Old Testament. These are rabbinical Jews that and I talked about this on the Ye interview. They believe in the Talmud. Their rabbinical interpretation of the Hebrew Bible has now, it's almost like it's abrogated inspired scripture. And so they're looking more towards the Talmud, where you have rabbis correcting God in their interpretation of this.
Hang on. You think that because people post mean things about Christians on Reddit, that is proof that you're persecuted more than anyone else? Grow the fuck up. It is the internet. People shit talk everything on the internet. You are not a special and unique snowflake because you're getting shit talked on Reddit.
613 commandments laid out in the Hebrew Bible. They defer when there's a conflict between God and the rabbis, they defer to the rabbis. This is not the same people. This is not the same book. They're not our people. They do not share our best interest, and they don't even see us as equals. And you said this. I saw a clip from you on the day after 9/11. You said that they call the Palestinians goyim. They call us animals. And that's how they regard non-Jews. It's Jews, and they're in a big club,
How old
and
were
there's a
you
lot of fighting in
on
there.
September 11th, 2001?
I was 3.
Man, I'm getting old here. Well, look, here's where I'm at on this, Nick, and I want to take some calls coming up. You say this whole thing about Bill Gates is a side issue. No, that's the central issue. And I see this whole leftist thing saying America's Hitler and, you know, the leftist groups are Captain America. I see it just as what it is. And I just hope that all of us can come together and transcend the cashless society and the world government, the forced injections and the imploding borders. And I'm just trying to get everybody together on those issues instead of obsessing about different groups all day. You know, there's whole groups think Catholics run everything. And I don't think that's the case. And I don't think that Jews run everything. I mean, who do you think runs China with 1,500,000,000 people?
That's a good question, Alex.
I think the Chinese run China. And I think that's why, I mean, there are problems in China, but China is a country that is fighting ruthlessly for its own self-interest. And you could say that it's a tyrannical state, but China's always been a tyrannical state. They're a different kind of society. The Chinese people are very collectivist. They're very societally
like you are,
minded.
Nick.
They're
You're
very
collectivist
obedient
too.
and deferential. And that's their culture, and that's who they are. But there's no question that the Chinese Standing Committee and Xi Jinping are going out to bat every day to get great trade deals for China in the way that our Jewish leaders in America are not working for people in Oklahoma and Iowa. Does anybody believe the Hollywood Jews in LA and the finance Jews in New York and the government Jews in DC and the ones in South Florida? Does anybody think they care at all? They give a damn about people in Texas or people in Kansas or people in Iowa? They don't. In the same way that you could say Putin or Xi Jinping care, I think, about their countrymen, or Assad cares about the people of Syria. And that's really the conflict, is we've got this separate nation on top of ours, and they're not the only one. There's other. Saudi Arabia is influential. The Qataris, the Emiratis are influential. Chicoms are a real problem. They spy on our country. But there's only one that no one's permitted to talk about. You can hear about all those issues on the War Room, and you can hear about them on Tucker Carlson and Fox, and Mike Pompeo can say them, but there's one very powerful gangster group that you talk about it, and it's an instant ban. It's an instant kill shot. In some cases, they literally threaten to take your life. So I agree. I don't mean to reduce it all to something that's so simple, but we can't describe the society without bringing that into it. And that's one of the things that I
wanted to have the actual intellectual side of this discussion here today. And, I personally think that everybody that gets sucked into this black hole is giving power to it, and that's what some of the sinister forces manipulating groups want. And I think we have to transcend things on policy and ideas and actual issues and the fruits of the tree. We're going to go to break here in a few minutes. It's your chance, unfiltered, folks. We don't screen the calls. Just have a good, clean phone line. Tell us where you're calling from and don't cuss. So we're on a lot of radio stations. We can't have that. The toll-free number is 877-789-2539, 877-789-ALEX, 877-789-2539. We're talking about the Ye interview, Nick Fuentes today, censorship. We'll talk about Elon Musk coming up.
Has anyone ever actually called into InfoWars before? Like, how hard is it to actually get on the air on InfoWars? I'm not suggesting I call in, but I'm just curious at how many people actually call in.
What Nick Fuentes thinks of what he's really doing. Look, he's keeping me banned, but overall, he's bringing a lot of great folks back and exposing the death shot, the medical tyranny. So I like that. I like DeSantis talking about they're setting up a statewide prosecution through these grand juries of the vaccine makers. I mean, that's where I'm at. And so you can say who runs it or who's behind it. I'm just going to oppose pedophilia. I don't care who's behind it. I'm going to oppose fractional reserve banking. I don't care who's behind it.
It's hard to get through to C-SPAN.
And that's what I do. But we're going to take your phone calls coming up. 877-789-2539. 877-789-ALEX. Infowars.com. Tomorrow's news today. We'll be right back with Nick Fuentes.
So before they get to that, I just want to say, like, I should call into InfoWars. Well, I'd have to watch it live, and I'd have to have something intelligent to say, and then I'd have to get lucky to get through. I don't know, man. Like, I'm not really that interested myself personally. I'm just curious sometimes how many people actually like call into these shows. I don't know, but I want to say, like, I think. I feel like Alex Jones like didn't even get to make the points he wanted to make in this debate so far. I feel like he was more trying to give Nick like a platform to explain himself. Because Alex Jones was like, yeah, I think he made a couple points about like Bilderberg and like the WEF, but this wasn't what I would actually consider a debate. This is more like a discussion and Alex Jones giving Nick Fuentes a place to try to redeem himself. And Nick Fuentes did not take advantage of it as best he could. But I mean, I think that Nick Fuentes is showing who he really is. Maybe Nick Fuentes has just run out of fucks. Maybe Nick Fuentes is like, you know what? I'm canceled off of everything anyway. Why not just go full on anti-Semite and appeal to the worst possible audience that I could possibly appeal to, because they will love me and I will be their glorious, glorious, glorious cult leader forever. That to me seems like what he's really trying to do. Yeah, I agree. Like, you would never know that this was like a debate because it was just Alex Jones asking Nick Fuentes questions. This was not a real debate, which is fine. I don't have any problem with like this type of this type of approach. I never debate because I don't like debates. I prefer discussions like this one. And you know what I think Alex Jones did too is he gave Nick Fuentes the opportunity to show who he really is. And I think Alex Jones also did a good job of saying, I don't agree with you, Nick. I think this is a little crazy. I think this is not the biggest problem in the world. I think the Bilderberg stuff is a bigger problem than that. And I know like a tiny bit about that. I mean, I generally think that Alex Jones is probably correct on that. But I think, again, Alex Jones is looking like the voice of reason, and he's looking like he's taking the high road. All right, guys, please mount that like button for me as we get into their call-ins. I'm sure this is going to be a shit show.
Yes. Straight ahead, and then in 30 minutes, the War Room with Owen Schroyer. Well, we got loaded phone lines for Nick Fuentes here. I'm Alex Jones, your host. And let me just make my point here, and then I'm basically done debating and arguing all this. I don't judge Nick Fuentes, even though I disagree with him on some issues here, because you can't have the left viciously saying that white people are inherently the devil. I have stacks of articles here where major universities in Michigan, California, New York are going to make white people wear badges that digitally track them and don't let them go in certain areas. And who's running that? The ADL.
Seriously?
The ADL, at their
I hadn't heard about that.
Said I'm the number one enemy. We track the lawsuits, the attacks, everything to them. But I'm not going to blame the average Jew for what that horrible mafia is doing to me and my family, who actually use Hitler tactics. My issue here is I've studied eugenics. I've studied the New World Order. Francis Galton, 1850, founds the eugenics organization. They develop the whole plan. They create the Rockefeller Kaiser Wilhelm Institute, the Cold Springs Harbor operation. Hitler is a spinoff of that. Hitler's for euthanasia. Hitler's for planned societies. I oppose that because it is an offshoot of this eugenics operation. And I'm an expert on it. I know all about it. And I don't just read history books. And I'm not going to tell the whole story here, and I've never even told the whole story because it's amazing. But again, Dallas, Texas, one side of my grandfather's family were old Texans. The other side, the Hammonds, were Germans who'd come here pretty recently, and they were not Jewish. They were blonde-haired, blue-eyed, and they were in World War II, and they know what went on, and they told me, no, Hitler was bad. And they told me what went on and how the rich Germans in Dallas, once Hitler got into power in 1933, they would blackmail German family members, not my family, but people that my grandfather worked with, and suck money out of them. And so when I heard about Hitler doing that and blackmailing people and sucking money, my family told me went on. So I grew up actually hearing about all of that. Then my grandfather worked in secret weapons programs, and I only heard a little bit of it that my mom heard him talk about. He would never talk about it. But I remember him bitching when I'm like 8 years old about in weapons projects and how he knew Werner von Braun, all of it. and how he had to deal with these damn Nazis and how arrogant they were and how he didn't like them. So, I mean, I grew up with both grandfathers have been in World War II. They both dealt with the Nazis, and they both didn't like Nazis. And so I didn't get it from Captain America. I didn't get it from Hollywood. I didn't get it from any of that. I got it from my badass grandfathers who now look at people today like, I look back, these guys were freaking badasses. And, you know, they don't make men like that anymore. So that's where I'm at. But that said, you can't criticize Nick Fuentes for what he's saying when the left is literally redlining the engine when it comes to race-based politics.
Yes,
and
I
the
can.
ADL is captaining it, teaching.
Yes, I can. Because you can, like, if you turn into them, here's why I can criticize Nick Fuentes for being a collectivist. Because it is true that the left is collectivist. It is true that the left has been the primary driver of a lot of the crazy shit that's gone on. It is true that the left are authoritarians. However, if you think that becoming exactly like the left is the answer, then you're no better than them. You're no different than them. Just because you don't like the left doesn't mean that it is acceptable to become authoritarian against the left. You are no different. You are no better. If you don't want to get criticized, then be better than them. One of the things that drives me absolutely crazy is like every time I point out, you're being little authoritarian collectivists, conservatives. You're trying to legislate your morality and force it onto other people, conservatives. The answer I always, universally, every single time get is, what about the left? The left does it too. So you're honestly telling me that you can behave no differently than the people you hate. And I'm supposed to take your side because why exactly? I don't agree with your politics. I don't agree with your worldview. I don't agree with most of your social conservatism. I don't agree with so much that you are trying to use the government to force me to go along with. So why should I take your side over theirs when you are no different than them? It makes you guys look like massive, massive, massive hypocrites. Bree says, did you notice that Alex said that the Groypers live in La La Land and yet Nick didn't bat an eye and said that the Groypers love him? I did notice that. You know, I mean, there is... you can't hate Alex Jones. Come on. You can think Alex Jones is crazy. You can't hate him.
Elementary students, they're inherently bad because of what color they are. But my issue is I'm not going to sink to the level of the ADL.
No, we would not have a happier society. You would be happier. You would be happier. Just because you are happy when you are forcing your worldview onto other people, compelling people to follow your values through force of the state, does not mean everyone else is happier. It only means you're happier. Because you can't figure out live and let live. Leave other people alone. Let them live their lives. I would absolutely not be happier with the right in power. I wouldn't be. I'm not happy with the left in power. I would absolutely not be any less happy with the right in power.
Oh, but I say mess around,
or any
find
more
out.
Happy, rather.
Like Nick Fuentes said earlier, you think Nick Fuentes is your ultimate enemy. The support for what Ye said was 50-50. I wanted to demarcate the fact that I'm not for authoritarianism and I don't agree with what happened. What some of the things he said, I don't agree with the censorship and what's happened to him, but I'm not in league with that whole worldview. So that's where I'm at. We've got loaded phone lines for Nick Fuentes and myself right now. Daniel called in earlier before I went to you. He wanted to bring up Bible verses and synagogue of Satan stuff. I said, why don't you hold till Nick Fuentes is on? Nick's here. Go ahead and make your point, Daniel.
So I wanted to say that there are a lot of different sides to the question, and when you don't have all the sides, you end up with evangelical Zionism or other over emphatic views that the emphasis.
This is the part where I argue with people in my chat. You are not balancing anything out. You are no different than them. You are no different than the people who instilled the lockdowns. You are no different than the people who rioted in the name of BLM. You are absolutely no different from the people who put the entire society on house arrest. You are no different. You would do the same thing. You would do exactly in the precisely the same thing that they did. You are not better.
One or another point of the discussion of the Jews, and the fact is that the Jews do have a lot of blessings just inherited from the righteousness of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, from the forefathers. They have callings and blessings, but in Malachi it says that God will curse their blessings because they have not honored his name. So here you have people who are lost, but they have inherited all these blessings because of their forefathers, and these blessings are just being shot in every direction, and they fight against each other, they fight against the world. It says in 1 Thessalonians 2:15, they are displeasing to God and hostile to all men, which includes themselves, which is the answer to your question, Alex. How come they're killing so many people in Israel? You know, they are aiming their weapons blessings at everything and everybody, including themselves. Why? Because it says that in Galatians 4:21 through 31, when it describes how they are our...
The right are absolutely authoritarians. The right prove their authoritarianism every day, and it's not just with people like Nick Fuentes. The right do this just in general conversation. They do it when they talked about repealing gay marriage, when they overturned Roe v. Wade and lost the midterms because of it, and will probably lose every close election for the rest of their lives because of it. The right is absolutely authoritarian. They do everything that the left does. They're exactly the same. Republicans and Democrats are exactly the same.
Persecutor, they are the Ishmael to us Christians, the Isaac. We are allegorically Isaac, they are allegorically Ishmael. And if you look at who Ishmael is in Genesis 16 verse 12, it says he will be a wild donkey of a man, his hand against all his brothers. So this is really the answer to a lot of the questions.
All right, I got to jump to a lot of other callers here. Let me get Nick Fuentes' take on what you just said, Nick.
Yeah, I think that's all great. And I think it's so important to emphasize, and this is something I want to get to before the last break, is, Alex, you said you wanted to transcend all these things. There's only one way to transcend anything, and that's through Christ. The answer is not Hitler. The answer is not National Socialism. The answer to what's going on right now and the Jewish influence or whatever, all the influences, is for us to follow people that follow Jesus.
Now I've got all these right-wingers in my chat going, just because we want to legislate our values doesn't mean we're authoritarian. Like, predictable. You guys are so freaking predictable with your script. Hang on, I dropped my yarn on the floor. One sec. And this is why I have no respect for the right at all. None. Because you guys have absolutely no introspection. You have absolutely no idea. You really have tricked yourselves into believing that you're for individual liberties when you try to restrict speech all the time, when you try to persecute people based on their spiritual beliefs, when you try to legislate your morality through the power of the state, because it's just not good enough to talk about your values in your home with your family. It's not good enough just to do that. You then have to legislate based on your values to force your values onto the rest of us. You are no different. You are no different.
Christ, and it's that simple.
But
so
was
I love
Jesus
the biblical...
Christ not born a Jew? He said, I came to fulfill the Old Testament, not to destroy it. So, I mean, I love how people that hate Jews then follow Jesus, which I do. Jesus is the Messiah. Don't you see there's a paradox here?
It's not a paradox at all, because Jesus Christ was the fulfillment of the law. And so who are the Jews that remain? It's the Jews that are still holding on to old sacrifices and old ways of doing things. And like I said, that's where you get the Mishnah, and that's where you get the Talmud, and that's where you get the idolization of the law for its own sake, and the idolization of the law and ritual for its own sake, rather than the Lamb.
But the leftist Jews are literally at war with the Hasidic Jews. That's not a fake war. They're literally persecuting the hell out of them. Look at New York, how New York attacked the ultra-Orthodox.
The Jews are not at war with each other. The only times they even they're not. They're simply not. They're rival factions, certainly. But at the end of the day, they're all on the same side. The only reason the ZOA criticized the ADL is because they said, hey, ADL, your anti-white hatred is actually confusing people, and people think Jews are white and they're not liking Jews. So could you please stop it? But they didn't say that on behalf of the white people, and the ZOA is considered a more conservative Jewish group. So it's not to say that they're a monolith. They're not a monolith. Like you said, there's intense factionalism.
All right, let's take another call then. Let's get the calls. Chris in Kentucky, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for taking my call. I just want to talk about this whole interview in the context of my daughter and I listened to that interview together later in the day after I picked her up from her basketball practice. And I just can't, I can't say how much empathy, just can't express how much empathy she had for you, Alex. I just kind of felt like you were hijacked, and I really feel like this whole conversation stems from being, I hate to say this, but spiritually immature and not truly understanding the Jewish people. I've heard rabbis talk about Jews in particular and drawing the distinction from secular Jews and the evil that they're doing in this world. They've all had we can look all throughout the Bible. Jesus is not just the God of the New Testament. He's the God of the Old Testament too. And they are God's covenant people. But I do know this, at the end of the day, every knee will bow, every tongue will confess, and that includes everybody, not any specific people groups. But
and by the way, you see the attack on Christ, the Antichrist spirit knows that. Don't hang up. Chris, I want you to finish up. And William, we can go for 10 hours. Nick, you got to come back and take like 2 hours of calls. And we'll do a commercial-free podcast some Saturday. We'll open the phones up and take like 50 calls. We should do this. You got your own show on Cozy TV as well. Give people the URL.
Cozy.tv/Nick. Yeah, I'd love to.
Yep. Don't be afraid of the info, folks. Check it out. And band.video and Infowars.com. We'll be right back. I'm an expert on how the globalists operate. Their main mechanism is Hegelian
looks
dialectics.
like we're Hegelian dialectic.
Multiple, sometimes 2, 3, 4 opposing forces, and they'll run them together like waves in the water to create the storm they want. And so I love everybody, whether you're Christian, Muslim, Jewish, old, young, black, white, it doesn't matter to me, as long as you support liberty and freedom. And there is a major battle in the Old Testament and the New Testament that the caller, Chris, was talking about in Kentucky, where God is telling the Jews, but also all of us, stop being evil or you'll go into bondage. Stop doing this, stop doing that. And so that's the reality here for me. And that's what I'm trying to promote. Chris, finish your point, please, here with Nick Fuentes.
I guess probably the most important point I wanted to make was, in the context of my daughter, she's a 14-year-old girl, and she was sitting there listening to this conversation. And people need to realize, especially, people like you, Nick, that have an influence over younger people, need to be very careful with their words. Extremely careful. You don't realize what kind of influence
I like
you
this
have.
caller. Yes. Thank you, caller.
Honestly, this is just my personal opinion. You can do what you want to, but I think you need to read the Bible cover to cover 2 more times before you make any more comments about this subject.
Yes.
And
yes.
I'll go back
I agree.
to kind of your back and forth between each other. We try to pinpoint problems and find solutions. I think Alex has been pinpointing the exact problem on a growth on a man's big toe. And Nick, I think you're trying to cut the guy's whole leg off.
I got you.
And that's just the way I see, what's happening here.
I agree.
But we need to be very careful with our words.
This caller is the voice of reason.
Chris, I appreciate your call. God bless you for tuning in.
Hat tip to Chris.
Comments on that, Nick?
I would just say that I just don't really. Number one, I am very precise with my words. If you watch my show, it's very precise and very nuanced. But look around you. The problem in this world, if you are a Christian, is not that you have guys like me being careless with words, which I'm not. The problem is that children are being exposed to pornography as young as 9 years old, and they're being filled, their heads are being filled with all kinds of propaganda about violence and sex and sin. That's the problem. So I find it to be a little bit rich, and I'm going to be respectful, but Christians have got to toughen up. We're in a war here. Our adversary is the devil, and he's like a roaring lion looking for people to devour, and people are coming up against people like me who've given everything, or other people like Ye, and saying, you know, could you be a little bit more careful or something? It's like, you know, frankly, we're in a war, and that's not to say that we don't have responsibility. I take it seriously, and I use my words precisely, but
All right, Nick,
you know,
let's
we've
take
got to
another call.
reorient.
Here, let's go to William in Colorado. Go ahead. You're on the air.
Hey, guys.
Yeah.
Alex and Nick, just,
I agree, John
good
Morgan.
job opening up this dialogue. And before I ask my question, just want to say, you know, maybe it is time for, you know, the right, the conservatives to stop invoking Hitler and the left to always deflect to Hitler.
Yes.
But Alex, I gotta ask, man,
Another good caller.
don't you agree that the Germans were fighting for a better future for all of Europe?
Oh God, I spoke too
in
soon.
World
No,
War II? I mean,
no,
aside
no,
from, like, the
no.
tactics
I
of the
spoke too
war
soon.
and
I
Hitler,
apologize.
you keep
No,
repeating that you're German. Don't you think that Europe would be in a better place now?
no.
You know?
No, I did not say I'm German. I say I have German ancestors, and Hitler got 20 million Germans killed.
Well, that would make you German, sir.
Well, what it makes me is I'm an American and a Christian and then an American and a father. And I just think that I think Hitler was manipulated into that war, and I think Hitler did a lot of bad things. I don't think Hitler is the ultimate evil. I don't fetishize
That just
Hitler like
went
the
right
left
off
does,
the
but that's
rails,
where I'm
didn't
at.
it?
Well, you're already deflecting the question and going back to Hitler. I'm asking you, would it have all of Germany and all of Europe been better off?
No.
No, I don't think Europe would have been good under Hitler's European Union and Edward VIII is the king of the EU. I don't think Hitler. Why, let me ask you a question. The first country Hitler invaded was Poland that had a horseback military. He attacked them because they were weak. Why did Hitler attack and kill hundreds of thousands of Poles and bomb their major cities with Stuka dive bombers and Junkers? Why?
Well, now you're getting into who fired the first shots of the war. World War II was more or less a rematch of World War I. Who started World War I?
Oh, you believe Operation Himmler at Gleiwitz. You believe Poland attacked Germany.
I believe that they both invaded the borders. As far as who fired the first shots, neither here nor there. I mean, I'm just asking you, you know, Europe would be better off now, and for sure.
Well, I mean, actually, at Nuremberg, the Nazis testified that they staged an attack at Gleiwitz on a German radio station, military station, and started the war. I appreciate your call. Nick, let me ask you that question. I know you don't defend Hitler here, but you think World War II, Hitler invading Poland, was that a good, did the Poles, are they the master group too? Do they deserve it?
No, but I think you got to recognize the situation in Europe. And I would also say that the more relevant fact to me is the secret security guarantee that the British gave to Poland. I think that if you're looking for culpability for World War II, I don't think it rests with Hitler. I think it rests with, quite frankly, the United Kingdom and Winston Churchill.
Well,
and that's
right.
a view that's shared by Pat
you
Buchanan.
show your history knowledge, and the Brits did not back up that security guarantee.
Right. So in terms of in terms of those politics, I honestly don't think it's even relevant so much for today, because the thing is, we don't need to be having a big, protracted expert history discussion about World War II or the Holocaust. The question is, why is that the crux of the debate? And to me, that's the relevant part for Americans living in 2022. But they always want to get into the weeds on these things.
No, I hear you. America wasn't Hitler. We didn't do that. So we should not have that by the left pushed on us. Let's talk to Craig in Washington. Go ahead. You're on the air with Nick Fuentes.
Oh, hey guys. Hey, Nick, just a question for you. Like these are all just words, and it's so silly that we're beating each other up. Why don't you start living in Christ? My question to you is, like, why don't you, it doesn't have to be horse
Great
driven.
question.
Why don't you become like the Amish? Do
Great
your own
question.
thing.
Great
For a
question.
group, the Amish live in Christ more minutes of the day than probably any group out there.
Yes.
Why don't you just stop throwing bombs and start living in Christ? That's my question to you.
Well, I don't know what that means. I'm not Amish, so I don't think living in Christ means living in a low-tech society. I'm living in Christ every day. I'm a Christian. I go to church. I pray every day. I pray the rosary. And what we're called to do, we're called to go out and evangelize and tell the truth. There's horrible iniquity and horrible injustice going on in the world. If you're a Christian, you have to be disgusted at the state of our country. Like I said, the filth in the media, the filth in our school
Just
system,
went
the groomers, the
right
porn,
over
the
his
media,
head.
it's terrible. And to sit by and watch all these innocent people in some kind of quietist, people call this the Benedict option. I think it's a dereliction of duty. I think it's an abdication
let's
of our
jam in more calls. Let's talk to Wild in Wisconsin. Go ahead.
Hi, Nick. I agree with you about like the Jewish mafia stuff, but how you mentioned before about Hitler and being a Christian. Hitler is known for also killing, a significant portion of Orthodox Christians. I don't know really how you can square that. That someone who's killed so many Christians and being a Christian is an idol of yours. And then also I was wondering if Kanye on the back of his jacket with the checkered flag, not the mask, but the jacket, had a Masonic symbol on it, the checkerboard symbol, which is also the floor that Jesus was tried on with Pontius Pilate. Do you know if Kanye just likes racing or is he a Mason?
Well, first of all, it's yay. And no, I don't think that was the intention behind the jacket. He wanted
They're
to wear a
so
motocross
concerned about
jacket. He
updating
said it
his
fit
name.
the Texas, Austin, InfoWars.
Yeah, no, he wanted to find a country. He wanted us to take him to a store at night to buy boots. They were closed. So he wanted a cowboy outfit. So he went with that. I can say that's true.
Yeah, and what was the first question? The first question was about idolizing. The thing is, I don't idolize Hitler. And here's the problem. You bring up this conversation and people's brains turn off and they stop listening. I never said I idolize Hitler. I said there are things I admire about Hitler. There's things I admire about Joseph Stalin. There's things I admire about Xi Jinping. As a Christian, you understand that we're all fallen. We're all sinners. And so there are no good and bad people. There are people that have good and bad actions. And I would be...
So you think the Zionists are good too?
Like I said, I love everybody. Ben Shapiro, I think he has good attributes. Dennis Prager, he says
I
that
love Dennis Prager.
I don't go to hell.
We're out of time.
Okay.
We're out of time. Amazing debate and interview. Sorry to the other callers. Nick, join us again for another one of these. Let's do a commercial free soon, okay?
Let's do it. Yeah.
All right. Well, I guess that is what we have for the Nick Fuentes, Alex Jones debate. I want to know what your responses are in the chat. Chat it and let me know what you think. For me, I think that Alex Jones basically didn't participate, really, to be honest with you. I would have liked to hear more about Alex Jones's perspective, I guess, than what I feel like I heard. I feel like he was giving Nick a platform to like say whatever he wanted to say, which he's allowed to do. It's his show, of course. I wouldn't say there was a winner because I don't think this was a debate. I think this was a discussion. So Nick's fans can go, Nick was amazing. Nick is a genius. Nick is perfect. He is a god. You guys can say all of that you want. I don't think there was a winner because I don't think that this was a debate. This was a discussion at best. And I think that Nick Fuentes was given the opportunity to show his true colors, and he continued to, which is that he's an anti-Semitic little fuck who basically is setting himself up to be a cult leader. And I think that Nick Fuentes is extremely dangerous. I think that he's extremely dangerous because he's extremely smart and he knows how to play the game. And Kanye West for Nick Fuentes is a springboard. He doesn't care about Kanye West. Let's be really clear. Nick Fuentes does not care about Kanye West at all. Kanye West is a tool for Nick Fuentes to use in order to achieve his own goals. And I think it's really misguided of people to dismiss Nick Fuentes because I think that he is going to create a lot of problems in the next couple of years and after that as well. But I think the next couple of years are going to be interesting to watch from an outsider perspective. And I'm going to keep watching this stuff. To be honest, I've always been fascinated by extremism. And I want to watch the shit show that apparently will not stop. So those are kind of like my thoughts about what we saw. Certainly wasn't as explosive as the Kanye West interview, but apparently we're going to have more time for that later. All right, guys, I will be back tomorrow at 5 p.m. for another stream. I don't know what I'm streaming about yet, but I will figure it out tomorrow. Please mount that like button on the way out the door. Please subscribe to the channel if you have not already. And as a reminder, if you want to follow along with my Unwoke content and get updates from me on that, please make sure you subscribe to my Substack, carlin.substack.com. It is totally free. You don't have to pay anything, and I've got some great content up there. Please go and read the 4 primary goals of the woke left. Please go, if you read nothing else that I write, please read that. This is going to be essential, required reading for Socialism Saturday, for like any initiatives that we launch for fighting back against the woke left, stuff like that. Wait, what's going on Twitter? What did Musk do? What did he do? Hang on. Don't tease me like that, Phil. What happened? All right, I don't know what Musk did, but I gotta go. I gotta go to Twitter and find out. Guys, I will see you at 5 p.m. tomorrow. Take care. Have a great rest of your